Chapter 29:30. Chaotic immortal light shone from the divine jade fairy fetus. The sword will that erupted from it was mighty and eternal, causing everyone's heart to palpitate. The sword will was like the birth of the king of swords, causing all the swords to tremble and hum uncontrollably. It was as if they were worshipping their king. Before it was fully unlocked, there was already such a terrifying aura. It was even more terrifying than when the 5 elements immortal metal was unlocked. Everyone was shocked and curious, secretly guessing what kind of treasure was inside the divine jade fairy fetus. Could it be a boundary emperor weapon? Someone guessed. A boundary emperor weapon shouldn't be this powerful. Such a powerful sword will, eternal and immortal. It's still so terrifying even after being sealed for billions of years. I'm afraid. Someone shook his head. Could it be the legendary extreme emperor weapon? The person who spoke with a trembling voice. If the extreme emperor weapon could be unlocked from the divine jade fairy fetus, not only would Xie Wushuang lose, but the Shi family would also regain their former glory. Rumble. All the stone layers fell off completely. It was as if thunder had exploded. In an instant, a blazing light shot up into the sky, piercing through the heavens and earth. Clang. A sword hum resounded across the sky. An immortal sword that was neither gold nor jade floated in the void from the divine jade fairy fetus. It exuded a mighty and eternal sword will, mysterious and immortal. The immortal sword was extremely bright and dazzling. It flowed with mysterious light as if it could illuminate the heavens. 2 ancient words appeared on the sword. Profound heaven. The profound heaven sword was born. A mighty emperor's aura burst out, causing everyone to tremble. Their eyes were filled with shock. It was really an extreme emperor weapon. They felt like they were in a dream. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. Shi Wuji had really unlocked an extreme emperor weapon from the divine jade fairy fetus. The profound heaven sword is born. Shi Wuji reached out to grab the profound heaven sword. His eyes were filled with excitement. Profound heaven sword? The profound heaven immortal lord's extreme emperor weapon? Someone exclaimed. The profound heaven sword was very famous in the immortal world, and was filled with many legends. Because the profound heaven immortal lord defied the heavens, countless people in the immortal world admired him. They didn't expect the profound heaven sword to be sealed inside a divine jade fetus. Ha ha. We won. With the appearance of the profound heaven sword, who can contend against it? Shi Tianying's eyes were also filled with excitement as she shouted at Ling Xiao and Xie Wushuang arrogantly. Xie Wushuang's face instantly turned pale. Profound heaven sword? Looks like he's really going to lose. Xie Wushuang said with a wry smile, a trace of deep exhaustion in his eyes. When the 5 elements immortal metal appeared, although she was shocked, she didn't think she would lose. However, after seeing the profound heaven sword, she didn't have any other thoughts. You lost? That might not be the case. Ling Xiao smiled at Xie Wushuang. Boom. At this moment, Shi Wuji also grabbed the profound heaven sword, and a blazing immortal light bloomed. He raised the profound heaven sword, and a blazing light beam instantly rushed into the sky. Shi Wuji held the profound heaven sword in his hand, and a lofty feeling emerged in his heart. He felt as if he had become an invincible great emperor that could sweep across the heavens and destroy everything. Everyone looked at Shi Wuji with eyes full of awe and respect. The appearance of the profound heaven sword. Could it really be a sign that Shi Wuji was going to rise? Crack! But at this moment, an incomparably crisp sound rang in everyone's ears. Cracks began to appear on the profound heaven sword in Shi Wuji's hand. Then, like a mirror, it shattered. The smile on Shi Wuji's face froze in an instant, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. How is this possible? Shi Wuji's body trembled and his face was extremely ugly. His eyes seemed to spit out flames. Everyone's body trembled, and their faces revealed an expression as if they had seen a ghost. Some people even rubbed their eyes and carefully looked at the profound heaven sword. The profound heaven sword actually shattered? Everyone looked at each other, and felt as if there were 10,000 grassland divine beasts running through their hearts. Originally, everyone thought that the profound heaven sword of the profound heaven immortal lord had really appeared, but now it seemed that the profound heaven sword had shattered in front of their eyes. A flawless extreme Dao Emperor weapon was a priceless treasure. Then how much was a shattered profound heaven sword worth? This is the profound heaven sword. How could the profound heaven sword shatter? Damn it. This is impossible. Shi Wuji's handsome face began to distort. He was not willing to believe the scene before him. He had just raised the profound heaven sword, and it had shattered. This was like an incomparably resounding slap to his face. Feeling the strange gazes of the surrounding people, Shi Wuji felt a burning pain on his face and endless anger surged in his heart. However, he did not know who to vent his anger on. Shi Wuji was so depressed that he was about to vomit blood. The profound heaven sword actually shattered? Xie Wushuang finally breathed a sigh of relief. Although she was incomparably shocked and did not understand why the profound heaven sword had shattered, she finally saw a glimmer of hope. Otherwise, if the profound heaven sword was intact, she would not need to open the stone. Even if she did, she would only be humiliating herself. Immortal Lord Shi-An's expression was also incomparably solemn. He walked up without a word and carefully examined the fragments of the profound heaven sword. He shook his head and said, "These cracks have long existed. I'm afraid that when the profound heaven Immortal Lord died, the profound heaven sword also suffered heavy damage. Although it has been sealed for countless years, it is still completely destroyed." Immortal Lord Shi-An's words were like a heavy hammer that ruthlessly smashed on Shi Wuji's body. Shi Wuji's body trembled, and he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Pfft. He was actually so angry that he vomited blood. Ling Xiao looked at Shi Wuji with some pity. What a pitiful child. Anyone who obtained an extreme Dao Emperor weapon, but it turned into scrap metal in the blink of an eye would probably go crazy. The profound heaven sword actually shattered. Heaven-devouring rat also widened his eyes, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. Right now, he really didn't know whether to rejoice or feel depressed. Earlier, he thought that selling the divine jade immortal fetus to the Shi clan for only a few 100,000 immortal crystals was a huge loss. But now, it seemed that he had made a huge profit. This stone cutting is really like heaven and hell. Heaven-devouring rat thought to himself. /book_62507/L. Chapter 2931. Immortal Monarch Shi, you are an elder of the Shi family. What do you think of the 3 treasures Shi Wuji found? Jie Wushuang walked up and looked at Immortal Monarch Shi calmly. Immortal Monarch Shi-An's expression was a bit unsightly, but he still said faintly, "The 5 elements immortal metal is valued at 150 million immortal crystals. The immortal spear is valued at 3 million immortal crystals, and the profound heaven sword. Although it's broken, the sword fragment is still an extreme metal, and is valued at 30 million immortal crystals. The total is 183 million immortal crystals. Jie Wushuang, if the treasures from your 3 immortal stones exceed this value, then you win." Immortal Monarch Shi is indeed fair. Jie Wushuang smiled faintly. That was what she wanted from Immortal Monarch Shi. The 5 elements immortal metal was an extreme metal. Although it wasn't very big, it was indeed worth it to be valued at 150 million immortal crystals. The immortal spear was damaged, so 3 million immortal crystals wasn't too high either. As for the profound heaven sword fragment, it was a bit unrealistic. The sword fragment might be worthless to ordinary people, but to immortal monarchs, they might be able to see something from it and integrate it into a new weapon. 30 million immortal crystals wasn't low, but it wasn't high either. Immortal Monarch Shi couldn't go back on his word in front of everyone, so he could only pretend to be impartial. "Don't be so smug. Jie Wushuang, I don't believe you can find any treasures," Shi Tianying said with some indignation. Jie Wushuang smiled faintly and ignored Shi Tianying. She began to cut the stones. This time, everyone's expression was a bit different. Shi Wuji's stone cutting was full of twists and turns. Everyone originally thought that Shi Wuji would win, but now it seemed that Jie Wushuang might still have a chance of winning. Most importantly, they wanted to see if Jie Wushuang's 3 immortal stones could produce any valuable treasures. Buzz. Jie Wushuang's slender fingers were as white as ivory, and her wrist was as white as snow. As her slender hand fell, the immortal jade fetus trembled slightly and the stone layer began to peel off rapidly. Jie Wushuang's stone-cutting speed wasn't inferior to Shi Wuji's at all, and she was also incomparably relaxed. The first immortal jade fetus was quickly cut open. Wang. A mysterious light bloomed, and a rich medicinal fragrance spread out from it, causing the surrounding people to involuntarily tremble. An immortal pill the size of a longan flew out from the divine jade fairy fetus. It emitted a powerful spirituality, as if it wanted to break through the void and escape. Xie Wushuang was already prepared. She stretched out her hand in the air, and directly grabbed the immortal pill into her palm. Boom! There seemed to be a strange flame rising from the immortal pill, which contained a powerful aura of the origin. It's actually the heaven-burning immortal pill? Someone's eyes flashed, revealing a trace of incomparable surprise. The heaven-burning immortal pill was a quasi-emperor pill. It contained the fire origin energy, which could increase one's comprehension and perception of the fire origin energy. It was incomparably precious. Everyone did not expect that Jie Wushuang's first piece of divine jade immortal fetus would actually open a heaven-burning immortal pill. The sky-burning immortal pill is an ancient immortal pill. The pill formula has long been lost. If this sky-burning immortal pill is auctioned, it can be auctioned for at least 50 million immortal crystals. Someone said slowly. Everyone was also a little excited. Jie Wushuang and Shi Wuji were known as the peerless duo of the immortal ancient city. The battle between the two kings of heaven's prides at the pinnacle of stone cutting made everyone incomparably excited. Seeing that Jie Wushuang had opened the sky-burning immortal pill, everyone vaguely sensed that perhaps Jie Wushuang had a chance of winning. Jie Wushuang put away the sky-burning immortal pill, and then continued to open the second piece of divine jade fairy fetus. The second piece of divine jade fairy fetus had a very strange shape. It looked like a heart with 7 apertures on it, and at the same time, it spewed out bright immortal light. This was a 7-apertured divine jade fairy fetus, which contained an incomparably majestic vitality. Shi Wuji originally wanted to choose this piece of divine jade fairy fetus, but in the end, because he could not make up his mind, he hesitated and chose to give up. This piece of divine jade fairy fetus was chosen by Jie Wushuang. As Jie Wushuang opened the stone, more and more vitality gushed out from it, causing the surrounding void to tremble slightly. Could it be that this piece of divine jade fairy fetus is nurturing a powerful creature? Someone said in bewilderment. If this piece of divine jade fairy fetus nurtured a powerful creature, it meant that this piece of divine jade fairy fetus must have been sealed for hundreds of millions of years. It must have absorbed the essence of heaven and earth, the sun and the moon, and must be incomparably terrifying and powerful. Everyone was looking forward to it more and more. Crack. In the end, the divine jade fairy fetus was completely opened, and it actually split directly from the middle into 2 halves. Bright immortal light pervaded the air, and mist rose, looking mysterious and peaceful. In the center of the divine jade fairy fetus, there was actually an egg. The egg was dark golden color, and there were many strange patterns on it. At this moment, it actually cracked open with a crack. A kitten as white as jade walked out of the egg. It looked very cute. It blinked its big clear eyes, and looked at the people around it, as if it was a little scared. However, when it saw the dark gold eggshell, its eyes suddenly lit up, and it began to eat the eggshell in big bites. After it finished eating the eggshell, the kitten seemed to have grown a size. In the end, it patted its little belly, and actually lay down on the divine jade fairy fetus, and fell asleep directly. This kitten's heart is really big, everyone thought in their hearts. But what exactly is this little white kitten? This little white kitten has 2 fleshy horns on its head, and they look like dragon horns. Could it be a mutated dragon? Chinchilla? Someone asked curiously. Chinchilla. Everyone laughed bitterly. However, this little fellow had walked out of the egg, so they couldn't recognize its origin for a moment. A dark gold egg? A little white kitten? It looks so familiar, I think I've seen it somewhere before. The heaven-devouring rat said suspiciously. You recognize it? Ling Xiao asked. I think so. I think I've seen it in an ancient book, I remember now. This is one of the 4 primordial evils, Tao Wu. The heaven-devouring rat seemed to have thought of something, and suddenly exclaimed, Tao Wu. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed. After he came to the demon realm, he gradually understood that the Taotai clan of the old goat was not simple. It was actually one of the 4 primordial evils. The 4 primordial evils were chaos, Taotai, Taowu, and Qiongqi. The true chaos was already very rare, and the beasts of chaos in all the realms now mostly had a trace of the chaos bloodline. The old goat and emperor devouring sky were both from the Taotai clan, and Gu Daoi's true form was Qiongqi. Ling Xiao didn't expect to see one of the 4 primordial evils, Taowu, in the immortal realm. As one of the 4 primordial evils, Taowu was no weaker than the other 3. Its strength was terrifying. When the 4 primordial evils reached adulthood, they would at least have the strength of an immortal lord. PS 4th update. Everyone rest early. I haven't updated much these few days, because something happened at home. Muyu has been dealing with it, and it's finally over today. Muyu has 4 days off during the May Day holiday, so I'll make up for it. Everyone, please bear with me. Thank you for your understanding. End of chapter. Chapter 2932. Taowu, one of the 4 beasts of chaos. Immortal monarch Shi-An's eyes flashed with a hint of greed. This was a young Taowu. It was extremely precious and had endless potential. When it grew to its peak, it would become an invincible deity lord. It even had a glimmer of hope to peek into the supreme god realm. Taowu could be said to be one of the best mounts. Deity Lord Shi-An did not expect that Jie Wushuang's divine jade fetus could produce such a ferocious beast. It's Taowu? Hiss. It's a top-tier ferocious beast, known as one of the 4 beasts of chaos. It can fight with the ancestral dragon. Its strength is extremely terrifying. A young Taowu is invaluable. Although it's not as valuable as an Apex Emperor weapon, its value is immeasurable. I wonder if Taowu is as valuable as the 5 elements immortal metal. It's hard to say. The 5 elements immortal metal is an apex metal that can be used to forge Apex Emperor weapons. Although Taowu has endless potential, it's only a young beast. I'm afraid its value is not as valuable as the 5 elements immortal metal. However, if this young Taowu is auctioned, it's worth at least 100 million immortal crystals. Everyone was discussing. They did not expect Jie Wushuang to be able to obtain one of the 4 beasts of chaos, Taowu. Taowu's young beast. Shi Wuji's face was a little ugly. The young Taowu was extremely precious. Now it seemed that the sky-burning immortal pill and the young Taowu were close to the value of the 3 treasures he had obtained. Could it be that Jie Wushuang really had a chance to win? Shi Wuji thought of the broken profound heavenly sword and felt extremely unwilling. If the profound heavenly sword was not broken, so what if there was a young Taowu? Jie Wushuang would still lose. Damn it! Is this crazy woman really going to win? Shi Tianying and Shi Qingyi's faces were also ugly. It seemed that since the profound heavenly sword was broken, everything had gone out of their control. They did not know why it had turned into such a strange situation. This young Taowu is worth 100 million immortal crystals. Deity Lord Shi-An said expressionlessly. It seemed like the sky-burning immortal pill and the young Taowu were worth 150 million immortal crystals. After hearing Deity Lord Shi-An's words, Shi Wuji and Shi-An and Shi Qingyi, 100 million immortal crystals? This old man is really shameless. If the infant Swanni were to be auctioned, its value would definitely not be lower than the 5 elements immortal gold. Even if it was 200 million celestial crystals, I'm afraid there would be people who would want it. The heaven-devouring rat said indignantly, 100 million immortal crystals? Jie Wushuang frowned slightly. This price was still a little low. In her opinion, the infant swan and I should be worth about the same as the 5 elements immortal gold. However, now that immortal monarch Shi-An had made it clear that he was biased towards Shi Wuji, she couldn't say anything. After all, the value of such rare and exotic beasts was the most difficult to determine. Those who liked them could pay any price, while those who didn't would find it difficult to sell them for a high price. Fairy Wushuang, don't worry. Continue to cut the stones. Ling Xiao gave Xie Wushuang a reassuring look, indicating for her to continue. Xie Wushuang took a deep breath and nodded. Without looking at immortal monarch Shi-An, he walked to the last immortal stone. The sky-burning immortal pill and the baby Swanni are only worth 150 million immortal crystals. Can the last immortal stone contain treasures worth 33 million immortal crystals? It's hard to say. It's just an immortal stone. How can it be so easy to find treasures? Xia Wushuang's stone cutting technique is already extraordinary, but now it seems that she's going to lose to this kid. Yeah, what a pity. Everyone shook their heads and their eyes were filled with pity. Lei Ling, if you cause Wushuang to lose the dark yellow stone mill, not only will the Xie family not let you off, but I won't let you off either. Young Master Heiyun glared fiercely at Ling Xiao as he threatened. Ignorant. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and didn't even look at young Master Heiyun. This made young Master Heiyun even angrier, and his face was extremely gloomy. At this moment, Xie Wushuang was already standing in front of the immortal stone. Her expression was extremely calm, and she began to cut the stone. Buzz. The immortal stone trembled slightly, and the stone layer peeled off. Everyone's hearts were in their mouths. Although many people thought that it would be difficult to find any precious treasures in this immortal stone, they couldn't help but look forward to it. Could there really be treasures in this immortal stone? Ling Zhao's expression was very calm. He already knew what was in the immortal stone, and he believed that after the treasure was revealed, it would probably cause a commotion. Boom! When the immortal stone was finally cut open, a dazzling immortal light bloomed from it. From the immortal stone, a jade talisman as white as jade flew out. It exuded an ancient aura, and there were strange runes lingering on it. It looked very strange. What's that? Everyone's eyes revealed a trace of doubt. Xie Wushuang was extremely nervous at the beginning, but when she saw the jade talisman, her body suddenly trembled, and her eyes revealed a look of disbelief. This is the Imperial Jade Inheritance. Xie Wushuang was extremely excited. At the same time, there was a mysterious source energy lingering within the jade talisman. Wisps of Emperor aura spread out, causing the surrounding people to involuntarily tremble. What? It's the Imperial Jade Inheritance? Someone exclaimed in surprise. At this moment, everyone's breathing became hurried, and their eyes were filled with incomparable longing. The Imperial Jade Inheritance. This was the Imperial Jade Inheritance that only immortal monarchs and immortal emperors could leave behind. It was the most precious treasure, because it was very likely to contain the complete inheritance of an immortal monarch, or even an immortal emperor. No one expected Xie Wushuang to be able to cut open the Imperial Jade Inheritance. Fairy Wushuang, with this piece of Imperial Jade Inheritance, I think you'll definitely win. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. When he checked the Imperial Jade Inheritance just now, he immediately made up his mind. The Imperial Jade Inheritance contained a complete Emperor Realm inheritance, which was more precious than extreme Dao metals, and could even be compared to an extreme Dao Emperor weapon. This was because if the Imperial Jade Inheritance really contained the Great Emperor's inheritance, it would definitely contain Supreme Emperor scriptures and Peerless Emperor techniques. This was a supreme treasure that could tempt even immortal monarchs. The Imperial Jade Inheritance? After hearing these words, immortal monarch Shi An's expression changed slightly, and a trace of sharpness flashed in his eyes. Shi Wuji and Shi Tianying's expressions instantly became gloomy. They knew that they would definitely lose this stone gambling. The Imperial Jade Inheritance was incomparably precious. Even if it was only the inheritance of an immortal monarch, its value would not be lower than the 5 elements immortal metal. If it contained the Great Emperor's inheritance, its value would be immeasurable. End of chapter. Chapter 2933. Thank you, Lei Ling. Xie Wushuang said seriously to Ling Xiao. Her eyes were filled with joy. With the Jade Palace inheritance in hand, there was no doubt about the stone gambling this time. Everyone looked at Ling Xiao in disbelief. They thought that there was no precious treasure in this fairy stone, but they did not expect the most precious treasure to be in this fairy stone. Ling Xiao used the Jade Palace inheritance to help Xie Wushuang win this stone gambling. This also meant that the Qianyuan stone shop was going to change owners. Immortal Lord Shiren Shi Wuji, I don't think I need to say more about the result of this stone gambling. Xie Wushuang looked at Immortal Lord Shiren and Shi Wuji, and said plainly, "It's your good fortune to have found the Jade Palace inheritance. You won this stone gambling this time." Immortal Lord Shiren said expressionlessly, Xie Wushuang, you have to admit defeat. This Qianyuan stone shop belongs to you. Shi Wuji gritted his teeth and said. Although he was unwilling, he and Xie Wushuang had made an oath to the heavenly way, so he could not go back on his words. Moreover, he could not do anything to go back on his words under the watchful eyes of everyone. However, the Qianyuan stone shop, one of the biggest stone shops in the Shi family, contained all kinds of precious fairy stones and fairy jades, but from today onwards, it would belong to Xie Wushuang. Originally, Shi Wuji wanted to use this stone gambling to defeat Xie Wushuang and obtain the Xianhuang stone shop, which would greatly damage the Xie family. But now, all his plans were in vain. The Shi family really kept their promise. Xie Wushuang said plainly, but his voice was extremely harsh in the ears of Shi Wuji and Shi Tianying. They heard a hint of sarcasm. Xie Wushuang, don't be complacent for too long. The Qianyuan stone shop will be with you for the time being. After the stone gambling ceremony, you will return it obediently. Shi Tianying looked at Xie Wushuang angrily and said, Stone gambling ceremony? It's not too late to say that after the Shi family wins. Xie Wushuang said plainly. Xie Wushuang, the Qianyuan stone shop belongs to you. The stone gambling is over, but there is one more thing that I hope you won't stop. Immortal Monarch Shiren glanced at Xie Wushuang expressionlessly. What is it? Xie Wushuang asked doubtfully. Immortal Lord Shiran's eyes were filled with wisdom, as if he could see through everything. After his gaze swept past Ling Xiao and the heaven-devouring rat, it stopped on the heaven-devouring rat. Shi Tian Daoist, I didn't expect that you would dare to come to the immortal ancient city after killing my people. Do you really think that your disguise technique can fool me? Immortal Lord Shiran's gaze was extremely sharp as he stared at the heaven-devouring rat, and said coldly, What? The heaven-devouring rat's entire body shook, its eyes filled with disbelief. He didn't expect Immortal Monarch Shiren to recognize him. Damn it! How could Immortal Monarch Shiren, this old bastard, recognize him? Ling Xiao and the heaven-devouring rat had used double disguises. Logically speaking, even immortal monarchs should not be able to see through his identity. Ling Xiao's eyes also flashed with sharpness. He was slightly surprised. Immortal Lord Shiren actually recognized the heaven-devouring rat. This was something he did not expect. And you are the partner of Shi Tian Daoist. You should have a part in killing my people, right? Immortal Lord Shiran's gaze fell on Ling Xiao as he said coldly. Immortal Lord Shiran's words made everyone look at each other with a strange look in their eyes. The Shi family lost the stone gambling, and wanted to use other reasons to make things difficult for them? The name Shi Tian Daoist was so familiar. It seemed that the Shi family had been looking for this person. Why was he here? However, everyone understood that Ling Xiao and the heaven-devouring rat were in trouble now that they were targeted by the Shi family. Master, what should we do? How did this old bastard of the Shi family recognize me? We're finished. In the immortal ancient city, I'm afraid we can't escape. The heaven-devouring rat's anxious voice rang in Ling Xiao's mind. Why are you panicking? If I'm not wrong, I'm afraid that when you sold the divine jade immortal fetus to the Shi family, they left some kind of mark on your body. That's why Immortal Monarch Shiren was able to recognize your identity with a single glance. Ling Xiao said faintly. The Shi family is too sinister. They already knew that there was a problem with the divine jade fetus that I sold them. They have sinister intentions and want to use me to find the reincarnation of the profound heaven immortal lord. Why don't we just run? If we stay here, we'll definitely die. The heaven-devouring rat said in shock and anger. Run. Where to? Let's wait and see. Let's see Xie Wushuang's attitude first. Ling Xiao said faintly. Although Ling Xiao was surprised that Immortal Lord Shiren had exposed the heaven-devouring rat's identity, he didn't care. He had already helped Xie Wushuang win the stone gambling. Xie Wushuang couldn't possibly hand them over to Immortal Lord Shiren, right? Immortal Lord Shiren. What are you doing? These two are my Jie family's distinguished guests, not Shi Tian Daoist. Xie Wushuang frowned slightly and said faintly. Xie Wushuang, this is my Shi family's matter. I hope you won't interfere. They killed my Shi family's people and stole our divine jade fetus. Now you'd better come with me. Immortal Lord Shiren said indifferently. Immortal Lord Shiren, I'll say it again. They are my Jie family's distinguished guests. They can't go with you. Jie Wushuang was extremely tough. She stood in front of Ling Xiao and the heaven-devouring rat. Her eyes were extremely cold as she stared at immortal Lord Shuren without backing down. At this moment, young Master Heiyun was looking at Ling Xiao with gloating eyes. He had long disliked Ling Xiao, especially when Ling Xiao had helped Jie Wushuang win the stone gambling, and even obtain the Imperial Jade Palace inheritance. This made him extremely jealous. Now that he saw immortal Lord Shuren making things difficult for Ling Xiao, he was extremely pleased and had no intention of helping. Jie Wushuang, I don't want to fight with you. But if you insist on protecting these two murderers, don't blame me for being impolite. Immortal Lord Shuren said coldly with a trace of cold killing intent in his eyes. Rumble. Immortal Lord Shuren's body emitted blazing immortal light as a mighty emperor's aura spread out. He was like a dazzling sun, causing the surrounding people to tremble, and their eyes to be filled with respect. Immortal Lord Shuren, Lei Ling and his servant are my Jie family's distinguished guests. If you attack them, you will be making an enemy out of my Jie family. Jie Wushuang said calmly. An ancient golden sword appeared in her hand, as well as a dazzling immortal light radiated from her body. She stood with the sword in her hand as a vast sword intent rose around her. Facing immortal Lord Shuren, she showed no fear. Her eyes were filled with strong fighting spirit. Jie Wushuang is going against immortal Lord Shuren for these two people? Who is this Lei Ling? Everyone was extremely shocked and couldn't help but size Ling Xiao up. However, they all felt that Jie Wushuang wasn't a match for immortal Lord Shuren. After all, immortal Lord Shuren had broken through to the immortal Lord realm many years ago. Jie Wushuang was still too young, and the gap between her and immortal Lord Shuren was huge. Even if she was extremely talented, it would be difficult for her to stop immortal Lord Shuren. How dare you capture Lei Ling? Are you tired of living? At this moment, a languid female voice rang out in the void. It contained a myriad of emotions, causing the hearts of those who heard it to flutter. End of chapter. Chapter 2934. Buzz. The void vibrated slightly, and a strange fluctuation spread out. Celestial music was pleasing to the ear, accompanied by celestial Tao petals falling from the sky. The fragrance made one's heart flutter. For exceptionally beautiful maids carried a carriage over. The carriage was forged from a type of mysterious immortal gold, releasing resplendent radiance. Light muslin fluttered about, auspicious energy curling about, multicolored light shining in tens of thousands of streaks. A beautiful figure sat cross-legged on the carriage. It was a beautiful woman in her 30s. She was wearing a luxurious long dress. Her skin was as white as jade, and there was a hint of redness in her cheeks. Her figure was incomparably hot, like a fresh pomegranate, and incomparably perfect. She had a delicate face, especially her pair of watery peach blossom eyes. They seemed to contain all kinds of amorous feelings and endless temptation. One look at her, and one could not help but be captivated. This was a mature woman. Every frown and smile showed the most perfect side of a woman. Once she appeared, she attracted the attention of all the men. Everyone was captivated and intoxicated by her, and there was a moment of absent-mindedness. However, among these people, only one was not attracted to her. Madame Fuyao, why is she here? Ling Zhao's face looked as if he had seen a ghost, and his expression became extremely ugly. This woman was the wife of the ancient god cult master, Fuyao. Ling Xiao had never imagined that he would meet Madame Fuyao here. He had been careful enough, even coming to the immortal ancient city billions of miles away to avoid the Yunxi Saintess and Madame Fuyao. He had never imagined that he would meet Madame Fuyao here. Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. At this moment, Madame Fuyao also saw Ling Xiao. She smiled sweetly at him, and it was as if the world had changed its color. However, Ling Zhao's whole body trembled, and he complained incessantly in his heart. Lei Ling, this bastard, first seduced Madame Fuyao, and then Yunxi Saintess. However, he was discovered by both of them. Lei Ling escaped from the immortal realm when he saw that his plan had been exposed. He did not expect that he would fall into the hands of the Emperor of Kunwu Mountain, and now become Ling Xiao. Although Ling Xiao had used Lei Ling's trick to deceive Yunqi Saintis, he was not confident that he could deceive the shrewd Madame Fuyao. This time he was in big trouble. Ling Xiao felt his scalp go numb. His mind spun rapidly as he tried to think of a countermeasure. Moreover, Ling Xiao was silently criticizing Lei Ling in his heart. Lei Ling had always thought that Madame Fuyao was only at the immortal reverent stage. However, Lei Ling now discovered that Madame Fuyao's cultivation had actually reached the immortal monarch stage. Moreover, she didn't seem to be at the first heaven of the immortal monarch stage. Lei Ling thought that he was playing with others, but in reality, he was being played in the palm of others' hands. Madame Fuyao. When immortal monarch Shuren saw Madame Fuyao, his expression changed. His eyes revealed a deep fear. Who is this? How could there be such a grand display? Those 4 maids were all experts at the immortal king realm? Someone exclaimed in a low voice, his eyes filled with confusion. Shu, do you want to die? This is Fairy Fuyao, the wife of the cult master of the ancient god cult. Haven't you heard of her? She is a vicious and merciless person. If you are targeted by her, you will definitely die. Someone beside him tugged at his sleeve and transmitted a message to him. His voice was filled with fear. Fuyao, I have heard of her. It seems that the cult master of the ancient god cult is in seclusion now. This Madame Fuyao is in charge of the ancient god cult, right? She is an extremely powerful figure. No wonder immortal monarch Shuren is so fearful of her. Isn't that so? The ancient god cult is extremely powerful. It is ranked first among all the evil sections. It is a superpower that can contend with the 9 immortal sects. Compared to the Shu family and the ancient god cult, the Xie family is nothing. The cult master of the ancient god cult has unfathomable strength. He has been in seclusion for so long. Could it be that he wants to become an immortal emperor? How can it be so easy to become an immortal emperor? Anyway, the ancient god cult's strength is unfathomable. It is not something that we can fathom. However, does this Madame Fuyao know Lei Ling? She actually scolded immortal monarch Shuren for Lei Ling? That's hard to say. Let's just wait and see. Madame Fuyao's appearance caused a commotion among the crowd. Everyone's eyes were filled with bewilderment. Jie Wushuang frowned slightly. She did not like Madame Fuyao. However, when she thought of Madame Fuyao's identity, she remained silent in the end. Moreover, Madame Fuyao had actually come to help Lei Ling. This made Jie Wushuang even more curious about Lei Ling. Madame Fuyao, we are honored by your presence. This old man has failed to welcome you. May I know what relationship you have with this boy? This boy killed my Shu family's people and stole my Shu family's items. I hope that Madame can hand him over to this old man for punishment. Immortal monarch Shuren cupped his hands towards Madame Fuyao. Lei Ling is an old friend of mine. I have been looking for him for a long time. Who does your Shu family think you are? How dare you capture my people? Step down. Madame Fuyao chuckled. In the end, her expression changed abruptly. It was covered with frost, and her expression was incomparably majestic. Even though immortal monarch Shuren was an immortal monarch expert, she still berated him without hesitation. Although immortal monarch Shuren was incomparably furious and his eyes were surging with flames, he seemed to have thought of something. In the end, he suppressed the anger in his heart, and his expression became incomparably calm again. Since Lei Ling is an old friend of Madame Fuyao, this old man will spare him for now. Madame Fuyao, we are honored by your presence in the immortal ancient city. I hope that you can come to the Shu family, so that our Shu family can play host to you. Immortal monarch Shuren smiled at Madame Fuyao. Everyone was surprised. Immortal monarch Shuren had actually endured Madame Fuyao's berating? Even if the old god cult was stronger than the Shu family, this was the immortal ancient city. Immortal monarch Shuren was also the strongest expert of the Shu family. Could there be a reason for him to be so weak and fearful of Madame Fuyao? Even Shi Tianying, who had the most violent temper, had a face full of indignation. However, at this moment he had actually endured it. Go to your Shu family? Is this a hangmen banquet? This old man had better stay at the Jie family. On the day of the stone-cutting ceremony, ask that old bastard Shi Pejuan to come and pay his respects to this old man. Then, all of you can get lost. Madame Fuyao sneered. Then, she waved her hand as if she was driving away flies. Immortal monarch Shirin, Shi Wuji, Shi Tianying, and Shi Qingyi's faces were ashen. They were incomparably ugly, and their eyes were surging with flames. However, what surprised everyone was that in the face of such humiliation from Madame Fuyao, the Shi family, who had always been strong and overbearing, had actually chosen to endure it. The reason behind this was very thought-provoking. Let's go. Immortal monarch Shi An's face was extremely gloomy. If he continued to stay, he would only be humiliating himself. He let Shi Wuji and the rest, and turned to leave Qianyuan stone shop. Top. Chapter 2935. As for Qianyuan stone workshop, it would belong to Xie Wushuang from today onwards. Lei Ling, settle your matters and come to the Xie family to find me. Don't think of running away, you know my methods. Madame Fuyao glanced at Lei Ling with a faint smile. Then, the four maidservants lifted the carriage and turned to leave. What sin have I committed? Ling Xiao let out a long sigh in his heart. His face was also very ugly. He was afraid that he couldn't run away. Since Lady Fuyao dared to leave, she must have some method to monitor his every move. Could it be that he really had to meet Lady Fuyao? Thinking of Lady Fuyao's methods in Lei Ling's memory, Ling Xiao felt his scalp go numb. Master, what's the relationship between you and Lady Fuyao? She just saved us, but she doesn't seem to have good intentions. Sky-devouring rat looked at Ling Xiao curiously. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. Ling Xiao said plainly. Seeing that Ling Xiao was in a bad mood, Sky-devouring rat shrunk his head and didn't dare to continue asking. Lei Ling, although I don't know what your relationship with Lady Fuyao is, I advise you to stay away from her. Xie Wushuang looked deeply at Ling Xiao and said, I understand. Ling Xiao was depressed. He wanted to stay away from Lady Fuyao more than anyone else, but he couldn't shake off Lei Ling's fate of meeting people from the old god cult wherever he went. You're Lei Ling? I finally remember. You're the person wanted by the old god cult. You secretly learned the old god cult's supreme technique, and stole our transcendent divine elixir. You've got guts. Let's see how you're going to die this time. Young Master Heiyun sneered and looked at Ling Xiao as though he was looking at a dead man. Then he turned around and left. Secretly learned the old god cult's supreme technique? Stole the transcendent divine elixir from the old god cult? Hearing young Master Heiyun's words, Xie Wushuang and Sky-devouring rat were shocked. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. However, they were puzzled. If Lei Ling was really the old god cult's wanted criminal, why would Lady Fuyao help Ling Xiao? Lei Ling, I'll follow you to meet Lady Fuyao later. If she really wants to kill me, I will plead for you. Xie Wushuang said slowly. Thank you, Fairy Wushuang, but I'll go see Madame alone. Nothing will happen. Ling Xiao forced a smile. Thoughts spun in his mind as he used Lei Ling's memories to find a way to convince Madame Fuyao, but in the end he still failed. Ling Xiao was prepared to meet Madame Fuyao first to see what she wanted. If she really wanted to kill him, then he would have to do it by force. However, Ling Xiao had a feeling that Madame Fuyao wouldn't kill him. Alright. Then be careful. Thanks to you, I was able to win the Qianyuan stone shop. According to our agreement, the heaven-burning immortal pill, the baby swan and I, and the imperial jade inheritance are all yours. Of course, the 5 elements immortal metal, the immortal spear, and the fragments of the profound heaven sword that Shi Wuji obtained are also yours. Xie Wushuang nodded and raised her hands. Suddenly, 6 dazzling lights floated in front of Ling Xiao. They were the 6 treasures from the stone gambling. Although Shi Wuji had obtained 3 treasures, according to the rules of the stone gambling in the immortal ancient city, the winner had everything, including the treasures that were obtained. Therefore, Shi Wuji's 3 treasures were left behind. Shi Wuji was probably very distressed now. After all, the 5 elements immortal metal was an extremely rare metal, and now it belonged to Ling Xiao. In that case, I won't be polite. Ling Xiao nodded. With a wave of his sleeve, he put away the 6 treasures. This was what he had agreed to with Xie Wushuang, so naturally he wouldn't be polite. Among the 6 treasures, Ling Xiao valued the imperial jade inheritance and the baby swan and I the most. The former might contain the complete immortal Dao inheritance, which could allow him to cultivate more immortal Dao secret skills. The latter was one of the 4 chaotic beasts, and its future potential was limitless. Ling Xiao suddenly had a thought. The 6 treasures were kept in the small world in his body, and the divine jade fairy fetus that he had obtained before was also in it. Ling Xiao was surprised to find that the fragment of the mysterious heavenly sword was trembling slightly, as if it had a mysterious connection with the divine jade fairy fetus. Could the woman in the divine jade fairy fetus really be the mysterious heavenly celestial master? Ling Xiao's heart skipped a beat. At this moment, the people in the heavenly courtyard had all left, leaving only Ling Xiao, Xie Wushuang, and the sky-devouring rat. Fairy Wushuang, I still have a divine jade fairy fetus here. Please help me open it. Ling Xiao waved his sleeve and the divine jade fairy fetus appeared in the heavenly courtyard. This divine jade fairy fetus is not simple. After glancing at the divine jade fairy fetus, Xie Wushuang's expression suddenly became very serious. Although she could not see what was in the divine jade fairy fetus, she could feel that there was an incomparably majestic vitality in the divine jade fairy fetus, which was even more exuberant than the divine jade fairy fetus of the swan and eye cub. Ling Xiao could have opened the stone himself, but after observing Shi Wuji and Xie Wushuang, Ling Xiao understood the key to opening the stone. Moreover, he had the celestial immortal secret skill and the divine secret skill, so it was not difficult for him to cultivate the stone dissecting skill. However, this divine jade fairy fetus was very important. Ling Xiao was afraid that something might go wrong, so he decided to let Xie Wushuang open the stone. Let me try. Xie Wushuang stood in front of the divine jade fairy fetus. She was also very curious about what was in this divine jade fairy fetus to have such exuberant vitality. Buzz. Ling Xiao's heart skipped a beat. Instantly, majestic immortal qi surged and shrouded the entire heavenly courtyard, forming a huge bounded domain. Ling Xiao had a premonition that when the divine jade fairy fetus was opened, there would be a big commotion, so he had arranged it in advance. Let me do it. Xie Wushuang waved her hand. Immediately, an ancient formation disk bloomed with dazzling immortal light. It looked extremely simple and mysterious. It directly activated rays of dazzling light, and shrouded the entire heavenly courtyard. This is the heaven sealing formation disk. It can seal all auras and fluctuations. Even if an extreme Dao Emperor weapon is born, it can also seal the scene of the extreme Dao Emperor aura to prevent others from spying on it. Xie Wushuang explained to Ling Xiao. After the heaven sealing formation disk sealed the heavenly courtyard, Xie Wushuang began to open the stone. As the stone peeled off, dazzling immortal light bloomed and auspicious qi filled the air. The figure inside gradually became clearer. It's a person? When Xie Wushuang saw the human figure in the divine jade fairy fetus, she could not help but tremble and exclaim. Top. Chapter 2936. Xie Wushuang didn't expect there to be a person inside the divine jade fetus, and it looked like a woman. Zoodream WW theming. If a living being could be born from the divine jade fetus, it must be an incomparably powerful ancient expert. Who was this woman? Xie Wushuang was also very curious. Wang. As she moved faster and faster, the stone layer kept peeling off, and the divine Dao and immortal Dao auras were separated. The figure inside the divine jade fetus became clearer and clearer. Crack. In the end, the divine jade fetus completely shattered. A woman appeared before Ling Xiao and Xie Wushuang. She was an otherworldly woman. Her entire body exuded an otherworldly aura, noble and mysterious. She had a stunning face, and her black hair was like a waterfall, falling to her waist. Her skin was as white as ivory, and as pure as glass. At this moment, although her eyes were slightly closed, her entire person seemed to be asleep, vivid and lifelike. Boom. After the divine jade fetus completely shattered, a powerful devouring force seemed to come from the woman, and it instantly devoured all the energy inside the divine jade fetus. Is she really the profound heaven immortal lord? Ling Xiao's heart trembled slightly. Light flashed in his hand, and the profound heaven sword fragment appeared in his palm. He wanted to give it a try. Wang. The fragment of the mysterious heaven sword began to hum and tremble. The woman's eyes suddenly opened. Two beams of light shot out from her eyes. They were dazzling and breathtaking like divine lamps. Rumble! The surrounding void began to tremble violently. There seemed to be an incomparably mysterious connection between the woman and the profound heaven sword fragment. Dazzling immortal light bloomed, and a vast and violent devouring force erupted, surging to the extreme. There were hundreds of divine immortal stones and divine jade fetus in the heaven courtyard, but at this moment, they seemed to be attracted by the woman, and instantly flew over. The majestic divine Tao and immortal Tao auras from the divine immortal stones were like rivers flowing into the sea, merging into the woman and the profound heaven sword fragment. How could this be? Xie Wushuang's face showed a trace of shock, and she began to be on guard. Ling Xiao also took a few steps back. Although he had expected this to happen, he didn't expect it to be so powerful. The hundreds of divine immortal stones and divine jade fetus, and the majestic energy contained in them were all devoured by the woman and the profound heaven sword fragment. Clang! The profound heaven sword fragment violently trembled, and the sound of metal clanging could be heard. As more and more majestic energy surged into the profound heaven sword fragment, it merged into the profound heaven sword fragment, and the fragments actually reformed, forming a new profound heaven sword fragment. The profound heaven sword. That's right, extreme Tao monarch weapons are indestructible. They won't be destroyed so easily. The woman, S. Wushuang. Is she the immortal lord? Wushuang said. T. Ling Xiao shook his head and said. He didn't stop what was happening, but allowed the woman and the profound heaven sword to devour the majestic energy around them. It was a pity that the precious divine immortal stones and divine jade fetus were completely destroyed, turning into hundreds of useless stones. However, Ling Xiao found that after the energy in the divine immortal stones and divine jade fetus were completely devoured, the woman and the profound heaven sword didn't seem to have completed the final transformation. I'd like to see if you're the immortal lord. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed. He took out all the immortal crystals and piled them up like a small mountain in the heaven courtyard. Millions of immortal crystals, the immortal qi contained in them, rushed toward the woman and the profound heaven sword in her hand like a torrent. Xie Wushuang also took out all the immortal crystals on her. As the daughter of the Xie clan patriarch and the king of heaven of the Xie clan, even if she didn't bring many immortal crystals this time, she still had tens of millions of them. With so many immortal crystals piled up together, the entire heaven courtyard was about to be filled. However, the woman and the profound heaven sword were like a bottomless pit, constantly devouring the vast and majestic energy around them. However, after tens of millions of immortal crystals were devoured, the woman and the profound heaven sword finally seemed to be full. Clang! The sound of the sword was crisp and pleasing to the ear. At the same time, an ancient and vast sword intent erupted, incomparably swift and fierce. The profound heaven sword exuded a powerful emperor's aura. It was dazzling, as if it could penetrate everything. It floated in front of the woman, emitting an intimate and attached fluctuation. In the end, the profound heavenly sword circled around the woman, and its powerful emperor aura slowly converged. In the end, it turned into a longsword that was neither metal nor jade. The woman held it in her hand and stood there with the sword in her hand. The powerful aura around the woman slowly converged and soon calmed down. The heaven courtyard now looked like a mess. There was only a pile of useless stones left, and there was no trace of immortal qi. The woman stood in front of Ling Xiao and Xie Wushuang. Her eyes were empty, and her face was a little dull. She didn't say a word and was extremely silent. Are you the immortal lord? Ling Xiao looked at the woman and asked softly. The woman was silent. Master Lei Ling, her condition doesn't seem right. It's a little like the soul detachment syndrome. She's like a walking corpse without spiritual intelligence, but she has her own subconscious and weak will. Xie Wushuang frowned and said. She could feel that the woman's body contained an extremely terrifying power. It was the power of the great Tao origin, which meant that the woman's cultivation was at least in the immortal lord realm. However, there was no primordial spirit in her primordial spirit sea of consciousness. There was only a misty soul floating around, sometimes blurry and sometimes clear. Therefore, it wasn't that she didn't want to answer, but that she couldn't answer at all in her current condition. What a strange condition. Ling Xiao was also very surprised. He didn't expect the woman to be so strange when she came out of the divine jade immortal fetus. Miss, where are you going next? Ling Xiao asked again. However, the woman still didn't say a word. Well, it's useless to ask, Ling Xiao said with a wry smile. However, at this moment, the woman moved. She stepped forward and stood behind Ling Xiao with her sword in hand. She acted as if she was Ling Xiao's maid. Master Lei Ling, she's not going to follow you, is she? Xie Wushuang was slightly stunned. Follow me? Ling Xiao was also a little surprised. Chapter 29:37. Ling Xiao thought for a moment and walked forward. However, the woman also walked forward. When Ling Xiao walked, she would walk. When Ling Xiao stopped, she would stop. She kept following behind Ling Xiao and was less than a meter away from him. Master, I suspect that she's the Xiantian celestial lord, the heaven-devouring rat said. Oh, how so? Ling Xiao asked. Tens of millions of years ago, the Xiantian celestial lord was invincible in the celestial world. She was known as the most dazzling genius of that era, and the most promising peerless genius to become an immortal emperor. She and the Xiantian sect she founded even wanted to be one of the 9 great celestial sects. However, she offended an important figure and died. The Xiantian sect was completely annihilated. However, tens of millions of years ago, the Xiantian celestial lord was already a peerless celestial lord, and stood at the peak of the celestial lord realm. How powerful is the person who killed her? The heaven-devouring rat said respectfully as he stole a glance at the lady. You mean an immortal emperor? Ling Xiao's eyes flashed. Perhaps only an immortal emperor could suppress the Xiantian celestial lord and annihilate the Xiantian sect. That's right. The important figure the Xiantian celestial lord offended should be an immortal emperor. Legend has it that when the Xiantian celestial lord died, her soul was destroyed and only her physical body was left. Therefore, it was sealed in the divine jade immortal fetus. The lady in front of us is very similar to the Xiantian celestial lord. Both of them have strong physical bodies but weak souls. The heaven-devouring rat said with a nod. Her soul was destroyed? If the Xiantian celestial lord's soul was really destroyed tens of millions of years ago, then the weak soul in her sea of consciousness might have been reborn in her physical body after tens of millions of years? However, can she still be the Xiantian celestial lord? Ling Xiao sighed softly. The so-called reincarnation was nothing more than a beautiful wish. The reincarnation of the almighty experts was actually the indestructible primordial spirit fusing with the baby's body. It was similar to possession. However, Jiang Yuyang was an exception. Jiang Yuyang seemed to have lived 9 lives, but even he couldn't tell how he reincarnated. Mr. Lei Ling, this Xiantian celestial lord is quite pitiful. If she is willing to follow you, please take good care of her. There was a trace of sympathy in Xie Wushuang's eyes. That's the only way, Ling Xiao said with a wry smile. He did not expect that the result would be like this. I just didn't expect the Xiantian immortal lord to cause such a huge commotion and destroy the immortal stone and immortal jade fetus in the heavenly character courtyard. Ling Xiao looked at Xie Wushuang apologetically. This was the heaven-type courtyard. A few hundred immortal stones added together was worth at least a few 100 million immortal crystals. Now, all of it had been destroyed by this woman. It's all right. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have obtained the Qianyuan stone store, and my Xie clan's mysterious yellow stone store would have been lost. Just take this as your reward. You don't have to worry about it. Xie Wushuang waved his hand and said in a carefree manner. In that case, thank you very much. Ling Xiao nodded and said, let's leave this place first. I'm afraid that many people in the immortal ancient city are watching us. If the heaven-type courtyard is sealed for too long, I'm afraid that others will notice something wrong. Xie Wushuang said, all right. Just as well. I want to meet Madame Fuyao. Ling Xiao said with a strange light in his eyes. Are you sure that Madame Fuyao won't do you any harm? Xie Wushuang asked curiously. Although she did not like Madame Fuyao, She also understood the strength of the ancient god cult and the terrifying power that Madame Fuyao possessed. Not to mention Ling Xiao, even her Xie clan had no room to resist. I don't think so, Ling Xiao said with a wry smile. Although he really did not want to see Madame Fuyao, since things had come to this, he could only brace himself and go over. The formation boundary that shrouded the heaven-type courtyard disappeared. Ling Xiao and Xie Wushuang left the Qianyuan stone store together and headed for the Xie clan. The Xiantian celestial master also followed Ling Xiao like the most loyal guard. In the depths of the immortal ancient city, there were two palace-like buildings. They were grand and magnificent, shrouded in bright immortal light, and surrounded by auspicious qi. They were like the palaces of the celestial emperors. These were the residences of the Xie clan and the Shi clan. In the Shi clan, in the palace where Shi Wuji lived. Bang, bang, bang. In the palace, many precious jade, glazed, and crystal lamps were smashed to pieces. Outside the palace, there were many maids kneeling and trembling. Shi Wuji's face was livid, and his eyes were surging with anger. It took a long time before he gradually calmed down. Inside the palace, there were Shi an Immortal, Shi Tianying, Shi Qingyi, Ren Xiaoyao, and the others. That bitch Fuyao humiliated our Shi clan. Does she really think that the ancient god cult can kill us? Sooner or later, I will make that bitch beg for death, Shi Wuji said with a gloomy expression. We are so close to the All-Kate Immortal sect, so it's not surprising that the ancient god cult saw through us. The Xie clan and the Shi clan have worked for the ancient god cult for many years, but the ancient god cult has always treated us like grass and killed us at will. The Xie clan is blindly loyal and refused to betray the ancient god cult. Now that the stone opening ceremony is coming, it's not surprising that they asked the ancient god cult for help. I just didn't expect that the person who came this time would be Fuyao. Shi an Immortal frowned and said. Martial granduncle, big brother, that bitch Fuyao came to the immortal ancient city. Could it be that she noticed something? Why don't we go all the way and send the experts in our clan to kill that bitch? Shi Tianying's eyes revealed a trace of ruthlessness. No. Now is not the time to alert the enemy. After the stone opening ceremony, our Shi clan will completely control the immortal ancient city. At that time, even Fuyao will die. Now we need to be patient. Shi Qingyi shook her head and said. Junior sister Qingyi is right. Now is not the time to act rashly. We can't let the ancient god cult notice anything strange. If they notice any clues about the treasures under the immortal ancient city, it will be difficult to deal with them. Let's wait patiently for a few days. After the stone opening ceremony, the Shi clan will control the immortal ancient city. At that time, we will use thunderous means to wipe out the Xie clan and the ancient god cult. Then, no one can stop us from exploring the treasures below. Ren Xiaoyao's eyes flashed and he said with a smile. Then let's wait patiently for a few more days. The Jie family must be destroyed and that Lei Ling must die too. I want those two sluts, Jie Wushuang and Fu Yao, to become my toys. I want them to understand the consequences of going against me, Shi Wuji. Shi Wuji said indifferently with a gloomy look. Since Brother Wuji has such a refined interest, it is Xie Wushuang and Fu Yao's honor. Don't worry, with the protection of the All-Kate Immortal sect, even if the ancient god cult makes trouble, they can't do anything to the Shi clan. Ren Xiaoyao said with a smile. Although he looked gentle, there was a kind of arrogance between his eyebrows, as if everything was under his control. P.S. It's finally the holiday. Happy holiday, everyone. Tomorrow is the May Day holiday. Muyu won't go out to play these days. She will concentrate on writing at home and strive for more. The Summit. Chapter 2938. Xie Family Rain Listening Pavilion. The Rain Listening Pavilion was the most honorable pavilion in the Jie family. It was usually sealed off and prohibited from entering. But now Madame Fuyao was staying in Rain Listening Pavilion. Ling Xiao and Xie Wushuang came to Xie family and walked to Rain Listening Pavilion. Brother Lei Ling, Madame Fuyao is inside. Go on in. I'll be outside. If there's any problem, just shout. Xie Wushuang stopped and said to Ling Xiao slowly. Thank you, Fairy Wushuang. I think there shouldn't be any problems. Ling Xiao said with a smile. Sky-devouring rat naturally stayed outside rain-listening pavilion. Only Xian Tian, Immortal Lord, acted as though he didn't hear anything, and continued to follow Ling Xiao into rain-listening pavilion. Stop! Outside rain-listening pavilion were Madame Fuyao and her 4 beautiful maidservants. Their faces were cold as they scolded. Madame has ordered that only Lei Ling is allowed to enter. The rest must stay outside rain-listening pavilion. Ling Xiao was taken aback and suddenly felt a headache coming on. This Xian Tian, Immortal Lord, didn't have any consciousness. Even if Ling Xiao told her something, she wouldn't be able to do anything. If she insisted on entering rain-listening pavilion, what should he do? Miss Xian Tian, how about you stay outside rain-listening pavilion and wait for me? I'll be out in a while. Ling Xiao whispered to Xian Tian, Immortal Lord. But Xian Tian, Immortal Lord, was indifferent. His eyes were empty as though he didn't hear what Ling Xiao said. He knew it. Ling Xiao shook his head, and then he clasped his hands towards the 4 female attendants and bowed. This is my attendant, Xian Tian. There's something wrong with her head, so I can't order her around. How about you let her come with me? No. Madam has ordered that only you are allowed to enter. If anyone else dares to enter rain-listening pavilion, kill them. A beautiful maidservant said coldly. Clang, clang, clang. Just as she finished her sentence, the sound of swords rang out. It was clear as a dragon's roar. The 4 maidservants drew their swords at the same time. The sword radiance was sharp and pointed at Xian Tian, Immortal Lord. Not good. Ling Xiao's eyes twitched as he knew something was wrong. Boom. Just at this moment, the profound heaven Immortal Lord seemed to have sensed the hostility. Instantly, a terrifying beam of light shot out from his eyes as a terrifying killing intent burst out. A majestic sword will rose and bloomed from the Xian Tian, Immortal Lord. It was as though a peerless divine sword had appeared in the world. That majestic pressure pressed down on the 4 maidservants. Rumble. The expressions of the 4 maidservants changed drastically. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. They felt as if there was an immemorial divine mountain pressing down on them. Its power was terrifying to the extreme, making it difficult for them to resist. At the same time, a peerless sword intent locked onto the 4 of them. It was as if the slightest movement from them would cause them to be killed immediately. These 4 maids were all experts in the Immortal King realm. Usually they were taught by Madame Fuyao personally, so their strength could be considered to be extremely powerful. But now, they actually seemed to be unable to withstand the sword intent of the profound heaven Immortal Lord, causing them to be extremely shocked. You. Who are you? One of the maidservants snorted coldly. The profound heaven Immortal Lord did not answer, but a terrifying power rose from his body. At the same time, the profound heaven sword in his hand trembled slightly, as if an extreme emperor's aura was about to burst out. Ling Xiao was shocked. If the profound heaven Immortal Lord really killed the 4 maidservants of Madame Fuyao, then they would be in big trouble. Ling Xiao quickly stood in front of the profound heaven Immortal Lord. Miss Xiantian, don't be rash. They mean no harm. Facing the rising sword intent of the profound heaven Immortal Lord, Ling Xiao was shocked. The peerless sword intent was vast and incomparably pure. It made the profound heaven Immortal Lord seem to have become a peerless sword immortal, born for the sword and wielding the origin of sword Dao. Ling Xiao actually felt an aura similar to Duguqiubai's. This was the pure sword intent that could only be possessed by dedicating oneself to the origin of sword Dao. After feeling Ling Xiao's aura, the light in the profound heaven Immortal Lord's eyes slowly receded. The sword intent on her body also gradually disappeared. She quickly calmed down and returned to her empty expression. Ling Xiao heaved a sigh of relief. The 4 maidservants of Madame Fuyao also heaved a sigh of relief. They secretly wiped the sweat on their foreheads and quickly put away their longswords. It was too terrifying. The terrifying sword intent made them feel an irresistible despair, as if they were about to be drowned by the invincible sword intent. Let them come in together. At this moment, Madame Fuyao's voice came from the raindrop pavilion. It was indifferent and ethereal. Only then did the 4 maidservants feel as if they had been pardoned. They stepped aside and allowed Ling Xiao and the profound heaven Immortal Lord to enter the raindrop pavilion. Finally, a storm has been averted. Ling Xiao thought to himself. The raindrop pavilion was incomparably exquisite. It was made up of several bamboo buildings. There was a purple bamboo forest in the surroundings that emitted a resplendent immortal light. Auspicious vapors filled the air and misty mist lingered. After entering the raindrop pavilion, Ling Xiao saw a peerless figure standing in the courtyard. Madame Fu Yao. Lei Ling, you still dare to come and see me? Madame Fu Yao turned around and looked at Ling Xiao with a faint smile. Her voice was crisp and pleasant, like the ringing of a bell. At the same time, it contained endless temptation that made one unable to help but sink into it. She exuded a mature aura from head to toe. Her figure was hot, and her skin was as white as jade. Especially her beautiful and charming face, her big, watery eyes seemed to be able to steal one's soul. Even though Ling Xiao had seen Madame Fu Yao's face in Lei Ling's memories, he could not help but be amazed when he saw her in person. She was indeed a stunner. Lei Ling dares not to disobey Madame's summons. Ling Xiao suppressed the distracting thoughts in his heart and smiled faintly. If you dare to come and see me, you shouldn't have brought anyone. Moreover, it's such a beautiful woman. Who is she? Madame Fu Yao's gaze fell on the profound heaven immortal lord with a hint of scrutiny. Her soul was actually so weak, but her cultivation was actually so strong. And this sword, is the profound heaven sword? Madame Fu Yao's eyes revealed a trace of doubt. Only now did she realize that the profound heaven immortal lord's body was abnormal. She's the reincarnation of the profound heaven immortal lord? Where did you find her? Madame Fu Yao looked at Ling Xiao and asked. I got her out of the divine jade immortal fetus. Ling Xiao told her everything that had happened. I see. But why did she follow you? Did you do something to her? Madame Fu Yao's eyes wandered as she looked at Ling Xiao suspiciously. Peek. Chapter 2939. Madam, I didn't do anything to her. As for why she wants to follow me, I don't know either. Ling Xiao laughed bitterly. All right. Let's put the matter of the profound heaven immortal lord aside for now. Let's talk about the matter between us. Madame Fu Yao strode over and stood in front of Ling Xiao. Immediately, a strange fragrance assailed his nostrils. Madame Fu Yao stared at Ling Xiao with her bewitching eyes, causing him to involuntarily take a few steps back and admit defeat. Madam, I know I've let you down, but my sincerity towards you can be seen by the heavens. If you want to kill me, I will have no complaints. Ling Xiao laughed bitterly in his heart, knowing that it was finally here. However, he could only brace himself and display Lei Ling's acting skills, looking at Madame Fu Yao with deep affection. Oh, then tell me how you've let me down? Madame Fu Yao smiled slightly, her eyes moving as if she was not angry at all. Madam, I shouldn't have given in to the temptation of Saintess Yunqi and betrayed you to be with her. Ling Xiao's face revealed a sorrowful expression. And Madame Fu Yao smiled. Ling Xiao's scalp went numb, but he could only brace himself and say, I shouldn't have escaped from the immortal realm after you found out. I dared to do it, but I didn't dare to admit it. I've let you down. And Ling Xiao was slightly taken aback. However, in that split second, a thought flashed through his mind. Then he looked at Madame Fu Yao with a fiery gaze. Madam, my biggest mistake was to fall in love with you. The deeper I love you, the deeper the pain in my heart. That kind of pain makes me wish I was dead. I only ask that you give me a quick death, and let me die in your hands. That way, even if I die, it will be worth it. Ling Xiao resisted the urge to vomit, and said these words with deep affection. That's right, these were Lei Ling's original words. Ling Xiao laughed bitterly in his heart. He had already used all his strength, and this was more tiring than a great battle. If he still couldn't find a way to survive, then he could only run. Lei Ling, are you really stupid or just pretending to be stupid? Actually, the mistakes you mentioned just now are not mistakes to me. Instead, you've made a great contribution to me. Do you know? Madame Fu Yao sighed softly. She extended a slender hand and brushed Ling Xiao's cheek. What? Ling Xiao was dumbfounded. You may not know, but that little bitch Yunqi used her identity as the saintess to collude with the elders, protectors, and disciples in the divine sect. She wanted to become the master of our divine sect. Originally, even I couldn't do anything to her, But I didn't expect the matter between you and her to be exposed at this time. In my sect, if the saintess wants to inherit the position of the sect leader, she has to remain single for the rest of her life. But she has already broken the precepts, so she will never be able to become the leader, nor can she threaten my position. So you have done me a great service, do you know? Madame Fuyao said lovingly. Ling Xiao suppressed the disgust in his heart and shuddered. However, he still pretended to be pleasantly surprised and said, "So did I help, madam?" "That's right, you did help me." Madame Fuyao nodded and said, "But your biggest mistake was to escape from the immortal realm and betray me. Do you know how much my heart hurts? Lei Ling, I lost my appetite for you and suffered the pain of lovesickness for you. But you treat me like this. You really have no conscience." Madame Fuyao stared at Ling Xiao with an incomparably bitter gaze, filled with deep affection. At this moment, Madame Fuyao seemed to have truly shed her disguise and revealed the attitude of a little girl in front of Ling Xiao. "What? You can do that?" Ling Xiao was a little dumbfounded. It was as if 10,000 grassland divine beasts were galloping through his heart. He had originally planned for Madame Fuyao to kill him, but he did not expect Madame Fuyao to reveal such an attitude. "So you have to make it up to me. Otherwise, I won't let you off." Madame Fuyao approached Ling Xiao, her red lips parted slightly as she spoke with a smile. "How do I make it up to you?" Ling Xiao turned his head with difficulty and said dryly. "You have already hooked up with that little bitch Yin Shi, so your next task is to make her completely fall in love with you, love you to death, then mercilessly abandon her, attack her, and tell her that the person you truly love is me, not her." Madame Fuyao smiled faintly. "What? Do you need to be so ruthless?" Ling Xiao said with a bitter smile. In her heart, she increasingly felt that the people of the old god cult were all abnormal. There was something wrong with their brains. Saintess Yin Shi was like that, young Master Heiyin was like that, and so was Madame Fuyao. Yes, I need to be so ruthless. That little bitch, although I won't kill her, I will let her know what it means to live a life worse than death. Do you agree? Madame Fuyao said with a cold smile. "All right. I agree," Ling Xiao said without hesitation. He would rather die than himself. In any case, he had to get through this hurdle first. "You really are my good Lei Ling. Since that's the case, I'll forgive you for leaving without saying goodbye this time," Madame Fuyao said with a smile. Then, a pair of slender jade-like hands touched Ling Xiao's cheeks and gently moved forward. Her red lips were directly pressed on Ling Xiao's lips, leaving behind a trace of sweetness. Boom. Ling Xiao's head felt like it had exploded. "I was kissed by force?" Ling Xiao's heart trembled violently, and a feeling of incomparable shame grew in his heart. He instantly wanted to push Madame Fuyao away. Clang. At that moment, a sharp sword chi bloomed behind Ling Xiao. In an instant, it slashed down towards Madame Fuyao. The profound heaven immortal lord behind Ling Xiao had made his move. The profound heaven sword was incomparably sharp, and contained a powerful emperor's aura, as if it could cut through everything. Madame Fuyao's expression changed involuntarily, and her figure moved like a ghost, instantly shifting the void and dodging the sword. The profound heaven immortal lord pointed his sword at Madame Fuyao from afar with a dangerous light in his eyes. "My good Lei Ling, this profound heaven immortal lord is so protective of you. Although her soul is weak, it seems like she's jealous." Madame Fuyao was not angry and smiled faintly. "Madam, I'm sorry. I can't control Miss Xian Tian, and I don't know why she attacked you with her sword," Ling Xiao said with a bitter smile. However, he heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the profound heaven immortal lord had made his move. Otherwise, he did not know what Madame Fuyao would do to him. She did not want to let Jin Sei and Shuiwei down. All of this was Lei Ling's fault. When Ling Xiao thought of this, he could not help but gnash his teeth in hatred towards Lei Ling. He could not wait to resurrect Lei Ling and kill this guy with his own hands. Peak. Chapter 2940. With the Xiantian celestial lord around, Madame Fuyao gave up on teasing Lei Ling. She did not want to be cut by the Xiantian celestial lord while they were being intimate. That would be dangerous and spoil the fun. "Lei Ling, I've come to Immortal Ancient City for an important matter. I might need your help. Madame Fuyao said seriously. Madam, what's the matter? Lei Ling will not shirk his responsibility. Ling Xiao said loyally, looking like a lackey. You might not know, but the Jie family and Shi family in Immortal Ancient City belong to the Ancient God Sect. Jie Shaoxing and Shi Pejuan are the guardians of the Ancient God Sect. Madame Fuyao said. The Jie family and the Shi family belong to the Ancient God Sect? Ling Xiao was slightly surprised, but he had already guessed it. Jie Shaoxing was the clan leader of the Jie family, while Shi Pejuan was the clan leader of the Shi family. Both of them were experienced immortal lords. He had not expected them to be the guardians of the Ancient God Sect. The Jie family was a superpower that was not weaker than the immortal sects. They had a large amount of resources and were extremely powerful. However, they were the assets of the Ancient God Sect, which showed how powerful the Ancient God Sect was. Although the Jie family and the Shi family belong to the Ancient God Sect, the Ancient God Sect does not have many restrictions on them. However, as they have more immortal stones and immortal jades and immortal fetuses, they have obtained a large amount of resources. This has allowed the experts in their family to become more powerful. Their powerful strength has bred ambition, and made them want to break away from the control of the Ancient God Sect. The Jie family is still fine. After my warning, I found out that they are still loyal to the Ancient God Sect. However, the Shi family is different. They are ambitious and have openly colluded with the All-Kate Immortal Sect. I think they are going to betray the Ancient God Sect and join the All-Kate Immortal Sect. Madame Fuyao said with a cold smile. The Shi family wants to betray the Ancient God Sect? How dare they? This group of ingrates. If not for the Ancient God Sect, how could they have obtained so many resources? The Shi family did not want to repay the Ancient God Sect, and even tried to rebel. They deserve to die. Ling Xiao said righteously. You are right. Shi family deserves to die. But now is not the time for us to act rashly. The great defensive array of the Immortal Ancient City is a flawless Emperor array. It is extremely terrifying, and can even kill celestial lords. The control is in the hands of the Jie family and the Shi family. In the stone-cutting ceremony, the final winner will be able to gain control of the Immortal Ancient City's great protective array. Madame Fuyao said slowly. Madam, you mean to wait until the Jie clan wins the extermination of Shi de Dian, defeats the Shi clan, and gains control of the Great City Barrier Array, before attacking the Shi clan? Ling Xiao asked thoughtfully. That's right. However, the Shi family probably wouldn't sit still and wait for death. Otherwise, they wouldn't have invited people from the All-Kate Immortal Sect. They were probably planning to make trouble after the stone opening ceremony. So now, let's see who will be the final winner in the stone-cutting ceremony. Madame Fuyao said slowly. What does Madame want me to do? Ling Xiao asked curiously. I want you to join Xie Wushuang in the stone opening ceremony and seize control of the great defensive formation. Madame Fuyao said directly. Participate in the stone-cutting ceremony? Madame thinks too highly of me. I don't even know what the stone-cutting ceremony is about. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled bitterly. Don't belittle yourself. I've seen your performance in the Heaven Courtyard. Your stone-cutting skills are probably not weaker than Xie Wushuang's. The stone-cutting ceremony, as the name suggests, in addition to stone-cutting, there is also a duel between immortal masters. With your strength, the opponent is likely to be Shi Wuji and Ren Xiaorao. If you win this duel, the Jie clan will be able to win. Madame Fuyao smiled slightly. Okay, since Madame has ordered, I will naturally work hard to win that duel. Ling Xiao nodded and said. He couldn't refuse. Not only was Lei Ling's cultivation speed extremely fast, but his combat strength was also extremely strong. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made a name for himself in the immortal world, and even made countless women fall in love with him, and willingly give themselves to him. Madame Fuyao knew that Lei Ling's combat strength was very strong, so she let him represent the Jie clan's foreign aid. Very well, then you should prepare well. If you really help me win this duel and eradicate the traitor Shi clan, there will be a reward. Madame Fuyao giggled. Her red lips parted slightly, and her small tongue licked her lips gently, emitting endless temptation. Then, she smiled sweetly at Ling Xiao and turned to enter the Raindrop Pavilion. I don't want any reward. Ling Zhao's body quivered, and he quickly suppressed the charm in his heart and thought to himself. This Madame Fuyao was really a vixen, frantically probing at the edge of danger. Ling Xiao felt very tired, and he didn't know how Lei Ling dealt with her back then. Ling Xiao and the Xian Tian Immortal Master left the Raindrop Pavilion together. Ling Xiao, are you okay? After seeing Ling Xiao come out, Xie Wushuang couldn't help but sigh in relief. I'm fine. Madame Fuyao has pardoned me, and the old god cult will no longer want me. Thank you, Fairy Wushuang. And Madame Fuyao also said that I will represent the Jie clan's foreign aid to participate in the duel of the stone-cutting ceremony. Ling Xiao smiled slightly. It's good that you are fine. But do you want to participate in the duel of the stone-cutting ceremony? With Madame Fuyao's words, the Jie clan naturally has no objection. For the next period of time, young Master Lei can stay in the Jie clan, and the stone-cutting ceremony is not far away. Xie Wushuang said with some surprise. All right, thank you for your trouble. Ling Xiao nodded and said. Xie Wushuang arranged for Ling Xiao to stay in the Windsong Pavilion. The Windsong Pavilion was not far from the Raindrop Pavilion, and it was also an independent courtyard on the hillside. With its back facing the waterfall, and looking at the sea of clouds, it was a magnificent sight. Ling Xiao temporarily stayed in the Windsong Pavilion. Ling Xiao threw the baby swan and I to the sky-devouring rat to take care of. The baby swan and I had just been born, and it needed to swallow many heavenly treasures. The sky-devouring rat was very experienced in taking care of this kind of beast, and Ling Xiao was relieved to leave the baby swan and I in his hands. Among the 6 treasures, the immortal weapon long spear and the sky-burning immortal pill were placed aside. Ling Xiao played with the 5 elements immortal metal for a while, and felt the perfect balance of the 5 elements immortal metal. Ling Xiao kept it. These extreme Dao metals were incomparably precious, and Ling Xiao had a plan in mind, an incomparably crazy plan that required a large amount of extreme Dao metals. With this piece of 5 elements immortal metal, he was much more confident. Finally, Ling Zhao's gaze fell on the Imperial Jade Inheritance. The Imperial Jade Inheritance was an inheritance treasure left behind by an expert in the immortal world during the antiquity times. It contained the expert's inheritance, and was incomparably precious. It could be said that it was extremely rare to see such a well-preserved Imperial Jade Inheritance in Ling Zhao's hands. Ling Xiao was also very curious about which expert's inheritance was in this Imperial Jade Inheritance. Buzz. Ling Xiao placed the Imperial Jade Inheritance close to his glabella, and at the same time, activated the Celestial Secret skill. His whole body was radiant with immortal light, and he began to accept the powerful inheritance in the Imperial Jade Inheritance. Peak. Chapter 2941. Rumble. In Ling Zhao's Sea of Consciousness, a dazzling immortal light shone as brilliantly as the sun. An ancient and mysterious aura flowed within the Imperial Jade Inheritance. Squall. It was an extremely pure immortal Dao aura, that also contained a vast emperor's aura. Is this the inheritance of an immortal emperor? Ling Xiao was slightly shaken. As the pure immortal Dao aura merged with Ling Zhao's Sea of Consciousness, a vast torrent of memories blossomed from the Imperial Jade Inheritance. It was mysterious and unfathomable, changing without a trace. A figure with an extremely fierce aura appeared in front of Ling Xiao. It looked like an old man or a young man, but he was shrouded in a monstrous murderous aura. His blood-red eyes were bloodthirsty and murderous. Ling Xiao couldn't help but be moved. He had never seen someone with such a strong murderous aura. It was as if he was born to kill. I am the Great Slaughter Immortal Lord. I obtained the Great Slaughter Immortal Art, and defeated the geniuses of the immortal world. I fought hundreds of millions of monsters alone, and was invincible. I attained Tao in 100 years, became a king in 1,000 years, and became a monarch in 10,000 years. I set foot on the Eternal Emperor's road and conquered the heavens. I fought 36,581 battles in my life. I won all of them and beheaded all of them. There has never been a single survivor under my command. I attained Tao through killing and walked on the path of slaughter. I peered into the origin and comprehended yin and yang. However, the Emperor's road was severed and there was no hope of attaining Tao. The heavens were jealous of the heroes. What could they do? A majestic voice exploded in Ling Xiao's sea of consciousness like thunder from the 9 heavens. It was mysterious, dignified, ancient, and enormous. This was the inheritance left behind by an expert called the Great Slaughter Immortal Lord. Although his memories weren't complete, and were mostly related to cultivation techniques, Ling Xiao still vaguely knew his life story. In short, it was the story of an ordinary young man from the immortal world who obtained the Great Slaughter Immortal Art and dominated the immortal world. In the end, the Great Slaughter Immortal Lord set foot on the Eternal Emperor's road, but he died there because it was severed. The Great Slaughter Immortal Art? What a familiar name. This was actually a supreme monarch technique that contained the complete slaughter origin. This Great Slaughter Immortal Lord is truly impressive. Although he didn't obtain the Immortal Emperor's inheritance, Ling Xiao wasn't disappointed. He discovered that the Great Culling Immortal Art was indeed extremely powerful. To live by killing, to prove one's Tao through killing, to slaughter all living beings, to sweep through invincibility, this was the grand art of immortal slaying. Ling Xiao saw that even though the Grand Slaughter Immortal Lord had obtained many cultivation methods and immortal arts, he had never cultivated them. He had cultivated the Grand Slaughter Immortal Art to the extreme, and evolved it into the slaughter essence. Eventually, he had relied on it to dominate the world. However, Ling Xiao seemed to have heard of the Great Culling Immortal Art from somewhere. Rumble. Ling Xiao's mind spun, but in his sea of consciousness, the great immortal slaying art turned into a black mist that surged with the origin of slaughter. Eventually, the black mist condensed into an ancient slaughter character. Whoosh. The word slaughter seemed to represent the ultimate power of slaughter in the world. In the end, it turned into a black streak of light and fused with Ling Xiao's soul. The great immortal slaying art. In an instant, Ling Xiao felt as if he had been slaughtering in the Azura hell for millions of years. The bloody massacre, the wanton slaughter, the destruction of all living beings, the shattering of everything. Slaughter seemed to have become an instinct, deeply imprinted in his soul. As for the great immortal slaying art, it was as if he had cultivated it for countless years and had reached perfection. With a single thought, a terrifying black mist surged around Ling Xiao. His killing intent soared, and his entire aura became dark and cold. This aura could even affect one's mind and cause great pressure and deterrence to the enemy. Ling Xiao could even feel that with this great immortal slaying art, his battle strength had soared by 30%. No wonder the Imperial Jade Palace inheritance is so precious. I can actually obtain the complete inheritance and comprehension of an expert through it. Truly heaven-defying. Ling Xiao marveled and finally understood why the Imperial Jade Palace inheritance was so precious in the immortal world. This Imperial Jade Palace inheritance was not made from ordinary treasures of heaven and earth. It was the crystallization of an expert's soul power. Obtaining the Imperial Jade Palace inheritance was no different from being enlightened. This great immortal slaying art was a pure killing art. Its power was terrifying and unparalleled. It was extremely precious to Ling Xiao. Although this great immortal slaying art is a supreme emperor art, I vaguely feel that it's not complete. It seems to be incomplete. It can't be called incomplete. Perhaps it's some other kind of slaughter origin. Ling Xiao's heart skipped a beat as he suddenly had a thought. However, he had no clue at the moment. The great immortal slaying art was indeed very powerful. It was even stronger than many of the emperor arts that Ling Xiao cultivated. A month later, Ling Xiao came out of seclusion. It was a pleasant surprise that he had obtained the great immortal slaying art's inheritance. However, Ling Xiao did not expect that it would take him so long to refine the Imperial Jade Palace inheritance and inherit the great immortal slaying art. While Ling Xiao was refining the Imperial Jade Palace inheritance, the profound Heaven Immortal Lord stood beside him like a loyal guard. Master, you're finally out of seclusion. The stone-cracking ceremony is about to begin. The heaven-devouring rat was standing guard outside. When he saw Ling Xiao come out of seclusion, he was pleasantly surprised. Stone-cracking ceremony? Didn't you say it would take 3 months? Is it brought forward? Ling Xiao was slightly stunned. That's right. The Xie family and the Shi family have agreed. The stone-cracking ceremony will be brought forward tomorrow. Fairy Wushuang asked me to stay here and wait for you to come out of seclusion. I'll bring you to see her. The heaven-devouring rat explained. All right. Ling Xiao nodded and said. Under the lead of the heaven-devouring rat, Ling Xiao and the profound heaven immortal lord left the Wind Song Pavilion. They passed through many palaces and pavilions, and even past a few mountain peaks. Finally, they saw Xie Wushuang in a palace built on the peak of a mountain. In the palace, besides Xie Wushuang, there was also a middle-aged man in a long robe. He looked elegant and extraordinary. His eyes were wise and deep as if they could see through people's hearts. The Xie family patriarch Xie Miesheng. Lei Ling, you're out of seclusion? After seeing Ling Xiao, Xie Wushuang's originally anxious face revealed a trace of joy. Greetings, Fairy Wushuang and Patriarch Xie. Ling Xiao smiled at Xie Wushuang and Xie Miesheng. You're welcome. You must be the Lei Ling that Madam mentioned. You're indeed a young supreme talent. I'm afraid we'll have to trouble you for this stone-cracking ceremony. Xie Miesheng smiled. His body was surrounded by a faint layer of clear light. Although Ling Xiao couldn't tell what level of monarch immortal he was at, he knew that he was a genuine monarch immortal expert. You're too kind, Patriarch Xie. Ling Xiao laughed. Chapter 2942. Lei Ling, the ceremony will begin tomorrow. The ceremony will be hosted by Madame Fu Yao and the Dubhe Immortal Lord. It seems like the Shi family is determined to rely on the Alcade Immortal sect. Xie Wushuang said slowly. Sui Ming Xiao. Come. Who is the Dubhe Immortal Lord? Ling Xiao asked curiously. The Dubhe Immortal Lord is the Grand Elder of the Alcade Immortal sect. There are 7 Immortal Lords in the Alcade Immortal sect, known as the Alcade 7. They are named after the Big Dipper, Dubhe, Merak, Fekta Migrez Alioth, Mizar and Alcade. The Alcade Immortal Lord is the strongest, and is the leader of the Alcade Immortal sect. The Dubhe Immortal Lord is second only to the Alcade Immortal Lord. Xie Wushuang explained. I see. How will the stone-cutting ceremony be held tomorrow? Ling Xiao asked. Although he had been listening to people talking about the ceremony, he did not know what the ceremony was about. The ceremony actually comes from the Immortal Ancient City's City Defense Array, the Immortal Coalescence Emperor Array. Below the Immortal Ancient City is the place where Divine Dao Qi and Immortal Dao Qi converge. An ancient great emperor used this as a foundation to set up the Immortal Coalescence Emperor Array. Within the Immortal Coalescence Emperor Array, immortal stones and immortal jade fetuses are produced every 10,000 years. Most of them are from the void treasures captured by the Emperor Array and turned into chaos-strange objects. The Array Eye of the Immortal Coalescence Emperor Array is among these treasures. The ceremony is to find the Array Eye of the Immortal Coalescence Emperor Array from these treasures. Once the Array Eye is found, one can control the Immortal Coalescence Emperor Array and win the ceremony. However, the Jie family and the Shi family had a discussion and divided the contest into 3 rounds. The first round was a battle of wits. The 2 families would send out their own people to identify the origin of the immortal stone and the immortal jade fetus, as well as the treasures within them. Furthermore, they had to open the stones as fast as possible. The second round was a battle of wits. The Xie family and the Shi family would each send out an expert to compete and defeat the opponent. Actually, the first and second round was just for fun. The key was the third round. The third round was called the Array Battle. Enter the core region of the Immortal Coalescence Emperor formation. Choose the Immortal Stone or Immortal Jade Immortal Fetus, and find the Array Eye. Therefore, in the third round, we must do whatever it takes. Otherwise, once the Shi family controls the Array core, the consequences will be unimaginable. Xie Wushuang said slowly and explained the stone-cutting ceremony. Literary battle, military battle, and formation battle? Ling Xiao nodded and said. With Xie Wushuang's explanation, he understood. Lei Ling, I hope that you can participate in tomorrow's martial arts battle, and accompany me in the third battle. Xie Wushuang said seriously. Martial arts battle? Do you trust me that much? Although I'm only an immortal venerable, do you really think I can win the martial battle? Ling Xiao said with a smile. If Madame Fu Yao says you can win, then you can win. Xie Wushuang nodded. All right. Since you trust me, then there's no problem. But what about Wenjian? Wenjian, are you planning to give up? Ling Xiao nodded and said, the Jie family probably won't be able to win the civil war. Therefore, we should focus on the second and third round. Xie Wushuang said. Why is that? Ling Xiao was puzzled. The civil war has always been the weakness of the Jie family. When the time comes, we will randomly choose 10 fairy stones and each family will send 10 stone-cutting masters. Although I don't want to admit it, the Jie family's stone-cutting masters are indeed inferior to the Shi family. Xie Wushuang said with a wry smile. Ling Xiao nodded. There was no other way. The Jie family's strength was obviously weaker than the Shi family's. They could only give up on the stone-cutting skill. All right. Since you trust me so much, I can only do my best. Ling Xiao said with a nod. His eyes revealed a trace of sharpness. Since he had obtained the inheritance of the Great Slaughter of Immortals skill, he might be able to see the true power of the Great Slaughter of Immortals skill in tomorrow's martial arts battle. The main reason why Ling Xiao was willing to help the Jie family was because of Madame Fuyao. Ling Xiao previously thought that Lei Ling had offended Madame Fuyao, so he got rid of Yunqi Saintis and avoided the territory of Madame Fuyao and the ancient god cult to come to the immortal ancient city. But now, it seemed that Madame Fuyao did not mind Lei Ling hooking up with Yunqi Saintis. Instead, she was happy to see it and even gave Ling Xiao a task. This way, Ling Xiao would have a chance to infiltrate the ancient god cult. Ling Xiao realized that many of the secrets of the immortal world were only known to the ancient god cult, or the 9 major immortal sects. Ordinary people did not know at all. He had a heavy responsibility this time. Besides finding out the truth of the immortal world, he also had to find out about the Eternal Emperor Road. Just like the Great Slaughter Immortal Lord. Although Ling Xiao knew that he had gone to the Eternal Emperor Road, he did not know the specific details and process. The ancient god cult claimed to be able to compete with the 9 major immortal sects. Ling Xiao would definitely know more inside information. Fairy Wushuang, have you heard of the Great Slaughter of Immortals skill? Ling Xiao suddenly thought of something and asked Jie Wushuang. Great Slaughter of Immortals skill? I'm not sure. Xie Wushuang shook her head. Great Slaughter of Immortals skill. Why would Lei Ling suddenly ask about the Great Slaughter of Immortals skill? This is the Supreme Emperor skill lost by the Heavenly Immortal Sect. Xie Mieshing, who was sitting at the head of the table, suddenly said. The Supreme Emperor skill lost by the Heavenly Immortal Sect? Ling Xiao was slightly taken aback. That's right. However, this was only what the Heavenly Immortal Sect claimed. In fact, the Great Slaughter of Immortals skill had nothing to do with them. In ancient times, there was a Heavenly Immortal Emperor who dominated an era. He was dazzling and invincible. He had 4 Apex Emperor weapons, namely the Immortal Slaying Sword, the Immortal Slaughtering Sword, the Immortal Trapping Sword, and the Immortal Extinguishing Sword. At the same time, he also created 4 Supreme Emperor skills, namely the Great Immortal Slaying Art, the Great Immortal Slaughtering Art, the Great Immortal Trapping Art, and the Great Immortal Extinguishing Art. The Heavenly Immortal Sect obtained the Immortal Slaying Sword and the Immortal Trapping Sword. At the same time, they also obtained the Great Immortal Slaying Art and the Great Immortal Trapping Art. Therefore, they claim to be the legacy of the Heavenly Immortal Emperor. Over the years, they have been searching for the other 2 Immortal Swords and 2 Emperor skills. Xie Mieshing explained. The 4 Immortal Swords and Immortal Skills? Ling Xiao was slightly taken aback. The doubts in his heart were finally resolved. He also finally understood why he felt that the Great Slaughter of Immortal skill was incomplete. It turned out that there were 4 complete Immortal skills. Legend has it that the 4 Immortal Swords and Immortal skills complement each other. Once they are complete, one can obtain the complete legacy of the Heavenly Immortal Emperor. Once the 4 Immortal Swords are used, they can even slaughter great emperors. Xie Mieshing exclaimed in amazement. Who is this Heavenly Immortal Emperor? How could he be so heaven-defying? Ling Xiao exclaimed in his heart. The 4 Immortal Swords could slaughter great emperors. Such means reminded him of the heavenly emperors of the human race. Although many people say that the Heavenly Immortal Emperor is from the immortal race, he should be from the immortal race. Jie Mieshing said as he looked at Ling Xiao meaningfully. Immortal race? Didn't the immortal race exterminate the immortal race long ago? Ling Xiao was slightly taken aback. That's right. The immortal race is almost extinct. However, it doesn't mean that the immortal race doesn't exist in this world. Otherwise, where did the old god cult and those evil sects come from? They all obtained the legacy of the immortal race and regarded the immortal race as the orthodox sect. That's why the 9 immortal sects didn't tolerate them and turned them into evil sects. Xie Miexing explained softly. I see. Ling Xiao understood in his heart. With Xie Miexing's explanation, Ling Xiao had a clearer understanding of the feud between the immortal race and the immortal race. However, the 9 immortal sects should be extremely powerful. They should be far more powerful than the evil sects like the old god cult. Why would they tolerate the existence of the old god cult? Could it be that there was something more to this? Ling Xiao also thought of the immortal race mark in his sea of consciousness. Could the immortal race mark be related to the old god cult? There were many mysteries that Ling Xiao couldn't find the answers to. Chapter 2943. There was a huge white jade square in the middle of the Xie and Shi families' mansions. Usually, it was heavily guarded by the experts of the 2 families. This was the place where the stone-cutting ceremony was held. Although there were many people in the immortal ancient city who were interested in the stone-cutting ceremony, not everyone could participate in it. Only those who had been invited by the Xie and Shi families were qualified to enter. Chapter 2922 of the Great Ancient Emperor, Stone Dissecting Ceremony. Please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 2944. Everyone had a strange look on their faces. Those who were able to attend the stone-cutting ceremony were all influential figures in the immortal realm. They more or less knew about the relationship between the Jie family and the Shi family. Moreover, the Shi family did not hide anything when they wanted to join the All-Kate Immortal sect. Not only had Shi Qingyi become a disciple of the All-Kate Immortal sect, but the saint of the All-Kate Immortal sect, Ren Xiaoyao, had also come. Even the second-ranked Dubhe Immortal Lord had come to the immortal ancient city. It was unusual for Madame Fuyao and Dubhe Immortal Lord to be the judges of this ceremony. Although the Xie family and the Shi family still maintained a friendly relationship on the surface and did not fall out with each other, it was probably because of this stone-cutting ceremony. He was afraid that after the stone-cutting ceremony, there would be a big storm coming. Madam, will you announce it? Dubhe Immortal Lord glanced at Madame Fuyao and smiled faintly. All right. Madame Fuyao did not decline and stood up in the void. Everyone's eyes fell on Madame Fuyao. There was a moment of absent-mindedness in their eyes, but they were full of passion. She was a woman who was perfect to the extreme. It was as if all the most beautiful words could be used to describe Madame Fuyao. Although Jie Wushuang and Shi Qingyi were equally beautiful, they were a little more inexperienced. They were not like Madame Fuyao, who was mature and charming. Every frown and smile was filled with a myriad of emotions that dazzled people. At this moment, Madame Fuyao was the center of attention. I announce that the stone-cutting ceremony has officially begun. With Madame Fuyao's announcement, the stone-cutting ceremony began. The Jie and Shi families had held countless stone-cutting ceremonies and were very familiar with the process. Therefore, there was no need for any judges. Madame Fuyao and Dubhe Immortal Lord looked more like witnesses. Jie Miexing and Shi Pejuan stepped on the void. Their gazes collided, and sparks seemed to fly in all directions. Buzz. An ancient seal appeared in each of their palms. The difference was that the ancient seal in Jie Miexing's hand was black, simple and mysterious, and filled with a vast divine Tao aura. The ancient seal in Shi Pejuan's hand was white, exquisite and perfect. It bloomed with bright immortal light and surged with vast immortal Tao power. The 2 ancient seals instantly soared into the sky, radiating dazzling rays of light in the void. The 2 ancient seals attracted and repelled each other, causing the surrounding void to tremble violently. In an instant, they turned into 2 pillars of light that shot into the depths of the earth. Crack! Bolts of lightning intertwined in the surroundings as blazing runes rose into the air. At the same time, an extremely terrifying emperor's aura spread out, causing the surrounding void to tremble violently. Dazzling light shone in front of everyone's eyes, and auspicious chi coiled around it. It was as if a strange formation space had faintly appeared. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Rays of brilliant light were fired from the formation and landed on the white jade square. They eventually turned into immortal rocks. Those celestial stones flowed with mysterious light. They were of different shapes and were dazzling. There were even celestial jades and immortal fetuses that contained boundless life energy. There were over 1,000 immortal stones. At this moment, Madame Fuyao and Dubhe Immortal Lord's eyes flashed as they struck at the same time. Madame Fuyao pointed in the air, and 10 pieces of immortal stones flew out towards the 10 stonecutters from the Shi family. Dubhe Immortal Lord stretched out his hand and similarly, 10 pieces of immortal stones flew out towards the 10 stonecutters from the Jie family. The first round, the literary battle begins. With Madame Fuyao's announcement, the literary battle began. In the first round, the Jie family and the Shi family each sent out 10 stonecutters to identify the origin and type of the immortal stones, and then cut them as fast as possible. This was a contest of stonecutters, and it also represented the foundation and power of the Jie family and the Shi family. Neither Jie Wushuang nor the 3 brothers from the Shi family made a move. This round was a contest between the stonecutters trained by the 2 families. Suddenly, the eyes of the stonecutters from the Jie family and the Shi family shone brightly. They each held an immortal stone and quickly formed seals with dazzling runes. They tested the immortal stones while looking for the internal nodes of the immortal stones, and then began to cut them. Rumble! On the white jade square, divine light shone brightly, and auspicious vapors filled the air. The contest between the stonecutters from the Jie family and the Shi family instantly attracted everyone's attention and brought the stonecutters ceremony to a climax. Fairy Wushuang, is the Jie family really unable to win the first round? Ling Zhao's eyes flashed as he asked faintly. He could see that until now, the stonecutters from the Jie family and the Shi family were still neck and neck. After quickly identifying the immortal stones, they entered the most exciting part of the stonecutters. They can't win. The Shi family has won 3 consecutive stonecutters ceremonies and has been the owner of the immortal ancient city for 30,000 years. They have obtained a huge amount of resources and their stonecutters have improved by leaps and bounds. Although I don't want to admit it, I have to admit that the Jie family's stonecutters are indeed very different from the Shi family's. Jie Wushuang shook her head and said, "You may see that the 2 sides are neck and neck, but the immortal stones in the Immortal Coalescence Emperor formation are all products of the immortal realm. They have been nurtured in the Immortal Coalescence Emperor formation for 10,000 years, and contain majestic divine Tao and immortal Tao aura. It is very difficult to separate the nodes." "I see." Ling Xiao nodded and said. Very quickly he saw the difference. At the beginning, the stonecutters from the Jie family and the Shi family were neck and neck. They had identified the immortal stones almost at the same time, and then began to cut the stones. But in the process of cutting the stones, the difference between the 2 families could be seen. On the immortal stones, divine Tao aura and immortal Tao aura were intertwined. There were thousands of such nodes. The Jie family's stonecutters needed a few breaths of time to break a node, but the Shi family's stonecutters were almost twice as fast. Therefore, many people could see that the hands of the Shi family's stonecutters were fluttering like butterflies. Their speed was extremely fast, and they were constantly breaking the nodes on the immortal stones. But the Jie family's stonecutters were much slower. The Shi family will definitely win this battle of wits. Shi Tianying sneered. The Jie family is already on the verge of collapse. Such stonecutters are really a disgrace to our family. Shi Qingyi also said coldly. On the Jie family side, although Jie Miexing and Jie Wushuang looked normal, many elders of the Jie family had extremely ugly expressions. This was simply a disgrace to the Jie family. If they were only slightly behind the Shi family, it would be fine. But now, it seemed that they were being crushed by the Shi family. If the first battle of wits was like this, then what about the next 2 battles? Could it be that the Jie family was going to lose this stone-cuttering ceremony? Top. Chapter 2945. Everyone's expression was also very strange. They looked at the Jie family with strange expressions. This time, the Jie family had really lost face. Without a doubt, the Jie family was bound to lose this time. Gotcha! Soon a crisp sound was heard. The stonecutter of the Shi family had finished their work and opened the treasures in the fairy stones. 10 dazzling light balls floated in the void, looking mysterious. On the other hand, the Jie family had only finished cutting 2 fairy stones. A crushing defeat. It was a complete and utter defeat. The Jie family has lost this battle of wits. Without waiting for the 2 judges to announce the result, Jie Miesheng stood up and said flatly, "Thank you, Brother Miesheng," Shi Pejuan said with a smile. However, no one stopped the Jie family's stonecutter and allowed them to continue cutting. After about 15 minutes, all the stonecutter had finished cutting the stones. However, the stonecutter of the Xie family had an ugly expression on his face. His face was full of shame. The gap was too big. They stepped back gloomily. Although Jie Miesheng and Jie Wushuang did not say much, they were also very upset. The first battle of wits and the second battle of wits did not have much impact. The most important thing is the third battle. Whoever can find the core of the formation will win this stone opening ceremony. That being said, from the first battle of wits, the gap between the Jie family and the Shi family's stone cutting technique is too big. If this goes on, it will be almost impossible for them to win the third battle. Let's watch the second battle. I wonder who the Jie family will send for the second battle of wits. Only Jie Wushuang, right? That's right. In this generation, the Jie family only has Jie Wushuang. However, if she participates in the battle of wits, it will be even more difficult to win the battle of wits. Battle of wits? Although they are stone-cutting families, the immortal realm is also a place where the strong are respected. This also represents the foundation of both families. However, I think that if Jie Wushuang does not participate, the Jie family will also lose the battle of wits. Many people who came to participate in the stone opening ceremony were discussing in low voices. Each of them had different expressions. Some were gloating, some were sympathetic, and some were indifferent. However, everyone had seen that the Jie family had lost so miserably in the first round of the literary battle. There was probably no suspense in the stone-cutting ceremony this time. For the second round, the Shi family will be represented by me. Rin Xiaoyao stepped into the void and cupped his hands toward Jie Wushuang and Jie Miesheng. His face was filled with an extremely gentle smile. "It's the Xiaoyao saint," someone exclaimed in surprise. The unfettered sage sun is actually representing the Shi clan. It seems like the Shi clan and the Alcade Immortal sect have a close relationship. Someone guessed. Unfettered Saint Sun? So handsome. If I can marry Xiaoyao Saint Sun, even if I have to shorten my lifespan by tens of thousands of years, I am willing. A young girl's eyes lit up as she said shyly, "Little whore, you really dare to think about it? The unfettered Saint Sun doesn't like you. Only Xie Wushuang is worthy of him." It seems that Xie Wushuang will be representing the Jie family. These are the 2 kings of heaven in the divine realm. If we can fight here, our trip will not be in vain. I'm really looking forward to it. Everyone's eyes were full of expectation. Their eyes fell on Xie Wushuang, looking forward to seeing Xie Wushuang fight. However, Xie Wushuang looked calm and indifferent, as if she had no intention of responding to Rin Xiaoyao. "I'm Lei Ling. I will represent the Jie family in this martial battle." Ling Xiao smiled faintly. At this moment, he did not hide his cultivation. The aura of the celestial prime realm was released, shrouding him in a layer of incomparably mysterious aura. It had to be said that Lei Ling's appearance was no worse than Ling Zhao's. His long purple hair was thick and lustrous, and his body was surrounded by purple thunderbolts. He was tall and handsome, and his appearance was even better than Ren Xiaoyao's. Otherwise, Lei Ling would not have been able to charm so many young women in the immortal realm. Lei Ling. After seeing Ling Xiao, everyone was slightly stunned. They did not expect the Jie family to send Lei Ling to fight. Who was this Lei Ling? Although many people knew Lei Ling and knew that Lei Ling was the person who won the Qianyuan stone shop for Xie Wushuang, there were many big shots present who did not know Lei Ling. After hearing the introduction of the people next to them, everyone knew Lei Ling's identity. Is the Jie family giving up on the martial battle? I'm afraid that's the case. After all, Xie Wushuang can't fight, and the Jie family has to preserve their strength for the upcoming battle. This Lei Ling doesn't look weak. He's actually a celestial prime expert. So what if he's not weak? Can he be compared to the unfettered saint? The unfettered saint is a king of heaven who is famous in the immortal realm. Lei Ling will only be humiliating himself if he fights. That's right. Lei Ling will definitely lose. It's just a question of how many moves he can take. I think he will be defeated by the unfettered saint within 10 moves. 10 moves. You're overestimating him. I bet he will lose in 5 moves. I bet 3 moves. Before the martial battle began, everyone began to talk about it. However, they were generally not optimistic about Ling Xiao and thought that he would definitely lose. Lei Ling. Ren Xiaoyao frowned slightly. He also thought that Xie Wushuang would fight, but he did not expect it to be Lei Ling. He was slightly disappointed. In the entire younger generation of the Jie family, the only one that could catch his eye was Jie Wushuang. Ren Xiaoyao, let's start quickly. I think everyone is looking forward to the third battle. Let's end this quickly. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and looked extremely calm. Ren Xiaoyao was the holy son of the All-Cade Immortal Sect. He had the powerful immortal skills of the All-Cade Immortal Sect. For Ling Xiao, he was a good opponent. Yes, he was only good. If an immortal master was here, Ling Xiao might be able to take him seriously. However, he was just a celestial prime. Even if he was a king of heaven in the immortal realm, Ling Xiao did not take him seriously. Okay. Ren Xiaoyao nodded and his eyes instantly became extremely sharp. He could hear the carelessness and indifference in Ling Xiao's words, which made him slightly angry. Although he looked gentle on the surface, he was incomparably arrogant and cold in his bones. In the entire younger generation of the immortal ancient city, only Xie Wushuang and Shi Wuji were worthy of his attention. Who was this Lei Ling? How dare he look down on the unfettered saint? Although Ren Xiaoyao was calm on the surface, he had secretly decided to teach Ling Xiao a lesson. Boom. Ling Xiao operated the immortal force around his body, and the blazing lightning bloomed. There seemed to be purple thunderbolts in his palm that began to superimpose. Peak. Chapter 2946. The Ninefold Purple Cloud Art. This was the cultivation method that Lei Ling practiced. It was created by an ancient immortal, and its power was extremely powerful. Ling Xiao used the Divine Punishment secret skill to control the Ninefold Purple Cloud Art, and easily cultivated it to the perfection realm. A purple palm print came across the sky, containing the Ninefold Thunder Light. It was ancient and mysterious. In an instant, it soared in the void and suppressed Ren Xiaoyao. The battle between Ling Xiao and Ren Xiaoyao was in the sky above the immortal ancient city. The immortal ancient city was protected by the immortal coalescence emperor formation, so no matter how powerful their attacks were, they could not affect the people watching below. Good. Ren Xiaoyao's eyes lit up. Ling Xiao's palm was powerful, and it contained a trace of the origin power of thunder, which made him look down on Ling Xiao less. Clang! The light in his palm was dazzling, and in an instant, an immortal sword appeared. The sword light was sharp, and at the same time, it was surrounded by bright starlight. Star River shattering. Following Ren Xiaoyao's soft shout, the immortal sword soared into the sky like a dazzling river of stars sweeping towards the sky. It contained a vast and ethereal sword intent of the Milky Way, as if it could shatter everything. This was the Star River shattering immortal skill of the All-Cade Immortal Sect. Ren Xiaoyao was an expert in sword principle. As soon as he made a move, the aura around him became extremely sharp, like an unsheathed divine sword, blooming with peerless light. Rumble. The purple palm print collided with the Star River in the sky in an instant. The void shook, the Star River shook, and the sky was dyed purple by the thunder. Everyone saw that in an instant. The dazzling light was dazzling, and the sword chi in the sky swept in all directions, completely annihilating the palm print. Ren Xiaoyao came with the immortal sword, and the sword light illuminated the world. The sword crossed the sky and wanted to cut Ling Xiao under it. Boom. Ling Xiao's expression was calm. Facing Ren Xiaoyao and the sword qi in the sky, he stepped into the void and punched out. Heaven and earth shook violently, and a terrifying divine power erupted from Ling Xiao's body, causing the void in all directions to shake in an instant. Under this punch, the sword light that filled the sky suddenly exploded with a bang. The immortal sword in Ren Xiaoyao's hand trembled violently, and a trace of shock appeared in his eyes. Ling Xiao's strength was too terrifying. At that moment, Ren Xiaoyao felt as if he was facing an ancient ferocious beast. It caused his entire body to tremble before he was sent flying. Kill! Ling Xiao roared. His eyes were like lightning, shooting out dazzling beams of light. He charged towards Ren Xiaoyao. Blazing lightning bloomed around him, enveloping him in a layer of purple lightning. At this moment, Ling Xiao seemed to have transformed into the god of thunder, about to send down lightning punishment, destroy everything, and suppress the heavens and earth. 7 constellations Azure Dragon Sword. Ren Xiaoyao's expression was fierce, and his eyes were full of strong fighting intent. He did not expect Ling Xiao to be so strong. Instantly, all the contempt in his heart disappeared, and he began to use his full strength. Although this martial battle was nothing, it was no longer a martial battle between the Xie and Shi families. This was Ren Xiaoyao's battlefield. If he lost this battle, not only would Ren Xiaoyao's reputation be damaged, but the All-Kate Immortal sect would also be humiliated. Therefore, Ren Xiaoyao did not hold back at all. The immortal sword in his hand emitted boundless immortal light, causing the sky to shake violently. 7 dazzling stars appeared in the eastern sky domain. Vast starlight sprinkled down, forming an azure dragon that flew across the sky and suppressed Ling Xiao. 7 constellations White Tiger Sword. 7 constellations Vermilion Bird Sword. 7 constellations Black Tortoise Sword. Ren Xiaoyao slashed down 3 more times in a row. The sword light illuminated the sky in all directions. In the eastern sky domain, the southern sky domain, and the northern sky domain, a white tiger, a vermilion bird, and a black tortoise flew across the sky at the same time. This was a supreme immortal skill of the All-Kate Immortal sect. It contained the power of the 4 poles and 8 wastelands. It could lead to the origin of the true spirit of the 28 constellations, and erupt with destructive power. In the face of Ren Xiaoyao's peerless swordsmanship, Ling Xiao's expression was extremely calm. He was bare-handed, and his fists were like dragons. Every punch shook the sky, made the void tremble, and erupted with blazing thunderbolts and the ultimate physical strength. Boom! The battle between Ling Xiao and Ren Xiaoyao instantly became extremely fierce. Lei Ling can actually fight with Ren Xiaoyao to such an extent? Who is he? I don't seem to have heard of Lei Ling before. Everyone's eyes were full of disbelief. This battle was beyond their imagination. Originally, they thought that this battle would be a crushing defeat. Ren Xiaoyao would be invincible and defeat Lei Ling. However, they did not expect that Lei Ling's combat strength would be so powerful that he could fight Ren Xiaoyao to a draw. He is really strong. Xie Wushuang's beautiful eyes were shining as she whispered to herself. Lei Ling is definitely not an ordinary person. How can he be so strong? Could it be that Lei Ling is just his alias? Shi Wuji's eyes shone brightly. Lei Ling had unleashed such a powerful combat strength, which made him extremely solemn. Shi Tianying and Shi Qingyi's expressions were naturally very ugly. Especially Shi Tianying. The enmity between him and Ling Xiao was not small. He constantly wanted to kill Ling Xiao, but Ling Xiao's powerful combat strength made him feel a little frightened. As for Madame Fuyao and Dubhe Immortal Lord, both of them looked extremely calm, but in fact, their hearts were far from as calm as they appeared. Lei Ling left the immortal realm once. Not only did his cultivation break through to the immortal venerable realm, but his combat strength also improved by leaps and bounds. It seems that he has obtained a great fortune. This is good too. Madame Fuyao thought to herself. Above the 9 heavens, the battle between Ling Xiao and Ren Xiaoyao became more and more intense. The so-called immortal qi traces its origin back to the power of the great Tao origin. However, the immortal qi of the immortal realm actually contains such a rich immortal substance. As a result, the people of the immortal clan not only have a long lifespan, but also the attack power of the immortal technique is extremely powerful. Ling Xiao thought to himself, and there was a trace of understanding in his eyes. In fact, Ling Xiao deliberately fought with Ren Xiaoyao to such an extent. Otherwise, even if Ren Xiaoyao was the holy son of the all-Kate immortal sect, he would not be able to withstand a few moves from Ling Xiao. One must know that Ling Xiao's current combat strength was too terrifying. He could even kill an immortal emperor expert. The reason why he and Ren Xiaoyao were in a stalemate in the battle was not only to preserve his strength and avoid exposing his strength, but also to test the power of the immortal technique. Sure enough, Ling Xiao found many special things. The immortal qi was, in fact, the power of the origin. However, it was fused with many immortal substances. Not only could the immortal qi delay aging, but it could also explode with powerful combat strength. It could be said that with the immortal qi alone, the combat strength of an immortal clan expert could crush experts of the same realm from other clans. Not to mention, Ling Xiao found that the bloodlines of many immortals were also extremely shocking. The immortal clan experts with immortal roots were even more powerful to an abnormal extent. For example, although Ren Xiaoyao was not old, and had only broken through to the immortal venerable realm for a short period of time, Ling Xiao felt that those immortal venerables of the human clan who had broken through for hundreds of thousands of years might not be a match for Ren Xiaorao. The immortal clan was indeed a powerful opponent. Chapter 2947. Ling Xiao and Ren Xiaorao had already fought for thousands of rounds. Sui Meng, Xiao Shua WW, Sui Meng, come in the eyes of the crowd. Ling Xiao and Ren Xiaorao had used all their divine skills and erupted with extremely powerful combat strength. In the end, they were evenly matched. Now, the crowd was no longer sure who would win this battle. They were even looking forward to it. Could Lei Ling create a miracle and defeat the Holy Sun? But for Ling Xiao, this battle was not a challenge. He just promised to understand Wushuang and verify some of his speculations. And now this battle could finally end. Ren Xiaoyao, let's decide the outcome with one move. Ling Xiao said lightly as he sent Ren Xiaorao flying with a punch. Okay. As you wish. Ren Xiaoyao wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said coldly with a sharp look in his eyes. He was still injured. Although Ling Xiao only used the 9 levels of the Purple Cloud skill to fight, his attainments in the Thunder Principle origin were extremely high, and his physical body was unparalleled. Although he fought Ren Xiaoyao's immortal sword with his fists, after thousands of collisions, Ren Xiaoyao still suffered serious injuries. He already knew how powerful Ling Xiao was, so he planned to deal with Ling Xiao with the most powerful immortal skill. Boom! Ren Xiaoyao's body bloomed with an unparalleled light, and an ancient and mysterious aura flowed around him. 9 heaven's stars fall. As Ren Xiaoyao shouted softly, in an instant, the hundreds of millions of acupoints all over his body gushed out rays of light like stars and began to light up. The firmament above the 9th heaven trembled violently. In an instant, the brilliance of the sun seemed to be covered, and hundreds of millions of stars appeared above the firmament. In an instant, the Milky Way shook, and the stars in the sky seemed to resonate with the acupoints all over Ren Xiaoyao's body. The unparalleled power of the stars sprinkled down, and in an instant, it turned into supreme stars and pressed down across the sky. Is this the 9 heaven's stars fall immortal skill? Someone exclaimed, recognizing the celestial art that Ren Xiaoyao had used. The 9 heavenly stars fall immortal art was the supreme emperor art of the all-Kate immortal sect. It was extremely famous in the immortal world. It could use the supreme star source to condense billions of supreme stars. At the same time, it contained the power of space and could destroy everything. Its power was unparalleled. Even if Lei Ling is defeated, he should be proud that he was able to force the unfettered Holy Sun to use the 9 heavens starfall celestial technique. That's right. If the unfettered Saint Sun uses the 9 heavens starfall immortal technique, he might even be able to fight against an immortal monarch. Lei Ling is going to lose for sure. Everyone exclaimed in amazement. Once the 9 heavens starfall great immortal technique was used, the outcome was already decided. Rumble. That scene was incomparably spectacular. It was as if billions of stars had fallen from the 9 heavens, converging into a vast galaxy, forming an incomparably terrifying starry domain. It enveloped Ling Xiao and was about to kill him. Ling Xiao's expression remained calm and indifferent. Boom! Dazzling celestial light bloomed around him. The celestial light became extremely sharp, like sword qi, and swept across the surroundings in an instant. An incomparably terrifying murderous aura and killing intent spread out from Ling Xiao's body. It contained the ultimate slaughter intent realm. At that moment, he seemed to have transformed into a demon god, wanting to slaughter billions of living beings. Great slaughter immortal technique. Ling Xiao shouted in his heart. Rumble. In an instant, billions of celestial lights gushed out from his palm. Each of them contained a terrifying aura of slaughter and destruction. They covered the sky and covered the earth as they enveloped Ren Xiaoyao. Each of the celestial lights could penetrate the heavens and earth, and each of the sword qi could destroy everything. In an instant, the power tore apart the starlight in the sky and collided with the unparalleled nine heavens starfall great immortal technique. Crack. A crisp sound rang out. In an instant, the surrounding heavens and earth trembled. Stars shattered one after another. The billions of stars that were formed from the star source seemed to be unable to withstand such a terrifying sword qi, and were annihilated one after another. In just an instant, the star domain that enveloped Ling Xiao was completely shattered. The slaughter sword qi that filled the sky, which contained the aura of the slaughter origin, enveloped Ren Xiaoyao. What? Ren Xiaoyao's body shook violently, and his eyes were filled with incomparable horror. He did not expect that his nine heavens starfall great immortal technique would be broken so easily by Ling Xiao. The slaughter sword qi that covered the sky made his scalp tingle. His body trembled, and the depths of his soul were throbbing. It was as if he was about to die. Rumble. Ren Xiaoyao did not even think about it. He slashed out with the immortal sword in his hand. Streams of sword qi crisscrossed, forming a defensive storm that enveloped his body. At the same time, he still felt insecure. The blazing light around him rose, and the clothes on his body bloomed with bright runes. It was a powerful defensive immortal artifact, and at this moment, it was completely activated by him. The light in his palm was dazzling, and a small crimson shield appeared. It expanded against the wind and blocked in front of him. He was completely scared. However, the terrifying slaughter sword qi quickly enveloped him, tore through the defensive storm, and blasted on the small crimson shield. The runes were annihilated. The small crimson shield was a powerful supreme-grade immortal artifact, but it still could not resist. In the end, cracks appeared on it, and then it directly collapsed. The clothes on his body also trembled violently. The runes were destroyed, and it began to disintegrate. Even with so many defensive means, it was impossible to resist the surging slaughter sword qi. Ancestor, save me. Ren Xiaoyao's eyes were filled with despair as he roared crazily. How dare you? Above the sky, the Tianshu immortal lord's eyes flashed with a cold light. He slapped down from the sky. In an instant, endless flames gathered and formed a huge palm print. It collided with the slaughter sword qi and annihilated all the sword qi. He reached out in the air and grabbed Ren Xiaoyao back. If he had not taken action, Ren Xiaoyao would have died in Ling Xiao's hands. Is this the power of the great slaughter of immortals technique? Ling Xiao exclaimed in his heart. Under this blow, Ren Xiaoyao was almost obliterated. Although the Tianshu immortal lord had blocked the massacre sword qi, Ling Xiao could clearly see that the massacre sword qi had left scars on the Tianshu immortal lord's palms. The Tianshu immortal lord's cultivation was at least above the fourth heaven of the immortal lord realm. He had already condensed the origin source immortal body, but he was still injured by the great slaughter of immortals technique. If I can get the immortal culling sword and combine it with the great slaughter of immortals technique, I will be able to slay even gods and immortals. Ling Xiao thought to himself. Lei Ling won the second martial battle. Everyone was stunned at this moment, and their eyes were filled with incomparable shock. Ren Xiaoyao was defeated? The nine heaven stars fall immortal technique was such a powerful emperor technique, but it was still defeated by Ling Xiao. What was the last immortal technique that Ling Xiao used? Everyone's hearts were filled with doubts and shock. P.S. I originally planned to write in seclusion during the May Day holiday, but the plan could not keep up with the changes. I went out with my wife, so I did not update much. I will find opportunities to update more. Everyone go to bed early. Chapter 2948. Your Excellency, aren't you too vicious? Tianshu Immortal Master stared at Ling Xiao and said coldly, his eyes surging with cold killing intent. If he had not acted in time, Ren Xiaoyao would have died in Ling Xiao's hands. He was extremely shocked. The powerful celestial art that Ling Xiao used at the end made him feel extremely unfamiliar, but its power was extremely terrifying. It directly tore apart the 9 heaven stars fall immortal art and defeated Ren Xiaoyao. The aura of the slaughter origin alarmed the Dubhe immortal lord. However, although Ren Xiaoyao came back, he was seriously injured. His flesh and meridians were destroyed by the slaughter origin aura, and could not be recovered in a short time. Tianshu Immortal Master was extremely angry. This was the holy son of all Kate Immortal sect, the hope of the future, but he was defeated by Ling Xiao. He could not wait to kill Ling Xiao. However, when he saw Madame Fuyao's warning look and thought of the next plan, he forced himself to hold back. Vicious. If I were not powerful, I would not have ended up better than Ren Xiaoyao in front of the 9 heaven stars fall immortal art. Tianshu Immortal Master is really childish. In the arena, life and death are up to fate. If he did not admit defeat, he deserved to be killed by me. However, as the referee, Tianshu Immortal Master acted without permission. Isn't this breaking the rules? Ling Xiao responded faintly. His eyes were as bright as lightning, as if there was a blazing light piercing through the void. Facing Tianshu Immortal Master, he still showed no fear. Very good. Lei Ling, I will remember you. Ren Xiaoyao admits defeat in this battle. Tianshu Immortal Master's face turned cold, and he looked deeply at Ling Xiao. Everyone's expression was a little strange. Lei Ling was really audacious. He did not give face to Tianshu Immortal Master. Did he really think that the Jie family could protect him? Many people looked at Lei Ling with sympathy and schadenfreude. After offending the unfettered Saint Sun and Dubhe Immortal Lord, Lei Ling was doomed. Seeing that Tianshu Immortal Master had restrained himself, Madame Fuyao's gaze also returned to calmness. She said faintly, the Jie family wins the second battle. Following Madame Fuyao's announcement, the martial battle officially came to an end. Ren Xiaoyao woke up slowly. After hearing the result, he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted again. This time he fainted from anger. Lei Ling, I didn't expect you to be so powerful. Xie Wushuang's eyes revealed a trace of amazement. She knew Ren Xiaorao very well, especially the last move of the 9 heaven stars fall great immortal technique. Even she would find it difficult to withstand it. It was very likely that she would be defeated by Ren Xiaoyao. However, not only had Ling Xiao withstood the attack, he had even defeated Ren Xiaoyao with lightning speed. Fairy Wushuang, I've fulfilled my mission, right? Now it's 1 win and 1 loss. The most important thing now is the third battle. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. That's right. For the third battle, the Jie family and the Shi family will each send 3 people. We will directly enter the Immortal Coalescence Emperor Array to choose the Immortal Stone. Whoever can get the core of the array will win the stone opening ceremony and control the Immortal Coalescence Emperor Array. Xie Wushuang said seriously. Who is the Jie family going to send? Ling Xiao asked. Young Master Lei Ling, you and I will fight together with Young Master Heiyun. Xie Wushuang smiled faintly and pointed at Young Master Heiyun in the distance. Young Master Heiyun immediately walked over. Ling Xiao frowned slightly. He did not expect Xie Wushuang to choose Young Master Heiyun. This guy was really annoying. However, what surprised Ling Xiao was that when Young Master Heiyun saw him this time, the arrogance on his face completely disappeared. Instead, he revealed an extremely flattering smile. Senior, I'm so honored to be able to participate in the battle with you. I believe that with your supreme luck, you will definitely be able to get the core of the array. Young Master Heiyun nodded and bowed to Ling Xiao. Senior? Why do you call me senior? Ling Xiao was slightly stunned and had a bad feeling in his heart. Senior, of course you are my senior. I was ignorant and offended you. Senior, please don't blame me. I didn't expect you to be the famous Lei Ling, who is also Madame's favorite. I'm just a latecomer. There are still many things I need your advice on. Young Master Heiyun said modestly. Ling Zhao's body trembled and his face turned green. He finally understood young Master Heiyun's identity, and why he had never seen young Master Heiyun before even though he was from the ancient god cult. This guy was actually Madame Fu Yao's new boy toy. No wonder young Master Heiyun called him senior. In young Master Heiyun's eyes, Lei Ling had committed such a huge mistake, and was still forgiven by Madame Fu Yao. Since Lei Ling was in the emperor's heart, he naturally had to serve him carefully. You are the senior. Your whole family are seniors. In the future, you are not allowed to call me senior. Call me Lei Ling. Ling Xiao glared at young Master Heiyun fiercely. In Lei Ling's memory, there were rumors in the ancient god cult that Madame Fu Yao had been unrestrained ever since the cult leader went into seclusion. She kept boy toys and liked handsome young men the most. Lei Ling didn't believe it previously. However, when Ling Xiao saw young Master Heiyun's behavior, he had no choice but to believe it. This Madame Fu Yao was really hardcore. At this moment, Madame Fu Yao looked at Ling Xiao and young Master Heiyun. She revealed a smile and revealed a myriad of amorous feelings. Ling Xiao couldn't help but shudder. His face turned ghastly pale. All right, senior. Young Master Lei Ling. Young Master Heiyun didn't know why Ling Xiao was so repulsed. He was a little confused but still nodded and agreed. After hearing young Master Heiyun's words, even Xie Wushuang looked at Ling Xiao with a strange look in her eyes. This time, I can't clear my name. Ling Xiao smiled bitterly in his heart. The third round of the stone opening ceremony, the formation battle begins. As Madame Fu Yao's voice resounded in the void, the third round of the formation battle began. It's here. Everyone's spirits were shaken, and their eyes were filled with anticipation. This was the highlight of the stone opening ceremony. It also represented who would be able to completely control the immortal ancient city in the next 10,000 years. The three people from the Jie family were Xie Wushuang, Ling Xiao, and young Master Heiyun. The three people from the Shi family were the three siblings, Shi Wuji, Shi Qingyi, and Shi Tianying. The six of them stepped on the void and looked at each other. Suddenly, there was a burst of bright light and sparks. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The six figures instantly flew and plunged into the formation space below. Peak. Chapter 2949. The formation space was the core area of the Immortal Coalescence Emperor Formation. It was located under the White Jade Square, and was also the intersection of the Divine Path Aura and the Immortal Path Aura. It contained boundless energy. In this area, many immortal stones would be born every 10,000 years. The third battle was to find the immortal stones that contained the core of the formation in the formation space. Then, through stone cutting, they would refine the formation core and control the Immortal Coalescence Emperor Formation. The rules were simple. This battle did not restrict any means. Even if the other party obtained the formation core, as long as they were strong enough, they could snatch it back. Therefore, the battle between the Jie family and the Shi family was not only a battle of stone-cutting skills, but they also had to guard against each other's sneak attacks and find the formation core as quickly as possible. However, in this battle, Ling Xiao had shown great combat strength, so Jie Wushuang was relieved. On the contrary, the Shi family should be worried the most. After all, although Shi Wuji was strong, he was only on par with Ren Xiaorao. According to the combat strength that Ling Xiao had shown, even if the three siblings of the Shi family attacked together, they would not be a match for Ling Xiao. Rumble. The formation space of the Immortal Coalescence Emperor Formation was a gray area. Propitious vapors rose and mist filled the air. On the ground, there were many immortal stones that shone with immortal light. This formation space was like a mustard seed. It did not look big from the outside, but from the inside, it was tens of thousands of miles long. Moreover, everyone outside could see everything that was happening in the space of the formation. However, no one could interfere, not even Madame Fu Yao and the Dubhe Immortal Master. They could only wait for them to come out and determine the winner. Who do you think will get the formation core this time? Someone asked curiously. It's hard to say. The Shi family has a higher chance of winning. After all, They have controlled the Immortal Coalescence Emperor formation for 30,000 years, and won the stone-cutting ceremony. This time will be no exception. But I'm afraid that Lei Ling will not follow the rules. With his strength, if he were to snatch the core of the array when the three Sure siblings discovered it, I'm afraid that the three Sure siblings might not be his match. There's no other way. Every dog has its day. The Jie family may really win this stone-cutting ceremony. Everyone looked at the scene in the array space and started discussing. The core of the array resonates with our bloodline, so we will definitely be able to find the core of the array faster than the Xie family. The only thing I'm worried about now is Lei Ling. His combat power is strong. If he forcefully snatches the core of the array, it will be troublesome. Within the formation space, Shi Wuji transmitted his voice to Shi Qingyi and Shi Tianying. Lei Ling? He was just a clown. Big brother, if he dares to snatch the core of the formation, we'll use the destruction talisman to kill him. Shi Tianying sneered as a cold killing intent flashed in her eyes. The Extermination Immortal Talisman is a Supreme Immortal Emperor Talisman. Out of the 3 chances, we have already used it twice. We only have 1 chance left. Don't waste the Destruction Immortal Talisman, unless you have no other choice. Shi Qingyi said slowly. That's right. When we find the core of the array, the 2 of you just have to hold Lei Ling back for a while. I will be able to refine the core of the array. Don't use the Destruction Immortal Talisman if you can. Shi Wuji nodded and said. Don't worry, big brother. I won't let anyone disturb you while you're refining the formation core. Shi Tianying said confidently. Let's find the core of the array as soon as possible. When I gain control of the Immortal Coalescence Emperor array, not only Lei Ling, but also the Xie family will be wiped out. Shi Wuji's eyes flashed with a cold killing intent. Big brother, leave Xie Wushuang and that bitch Fu Yao to me. I want to fuck them to death, and let them know what it means to live a life worse than death. Shi Tianying said coldly. As you wish. Shi Wuji nodded and said. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The 3 of them turned into 3 rays of light, and instantly plunged into the depths of the formation space. Within the formation space, there was an area with a radius of 10,000 miles. There were at least a few 100,000 immortal stones here. Of course, most of the immortal stones were actually useless stones and could not be used to unlock treasures. However, there were also some precious immortal stones that might contain extremely precious treasures. At this moment, no matter how precious the treasures were, the Xie family and the Shi family did not care about them. All they wanted was the right to control the Immortal Coalescence Emperor array. Only by controlling the Supreme Emperor array could they become the true owners of the immortal ancient city. Fairy Wushuang, what does the core of the Immortal Coalescence Emperor array look like? Ling Xiao asked Xie Wushuang. The core of the Immortal Coalescence Emperor array is not fixed in shape. Even if it was a small cauldron 30,000 years ago, a small sword 20,000 years ago, and an ancient seal 10,000 years ago. However, the core of the array is like the way of heaven and earth. It contains an extremely unique aura, and is different from the other immortal stones. Besides testing one's stone-cutting skills, it also tests one's understanding of the array. Young Master Lei Ling, you are not familiar with the Immortal Coalescence Emperor array. Hence, I hope that you can pick some immortal stones. Then I will sense the power of the array and pick the immortal stones that might contain the core of the array. I hope we can make it in time. The Shi family's perception of the core of the array is far better than ours. Xie Wushuang explained. Her eyes were full of deep worry. All right. Ling Xiao nodded and said. Young Master Lei Ling, I will help you pick the immortal stones. I am cultivating the nature creation skill of the divine sect. I can sense the nature creation skill. The immortal stones that contain treasures will not escape my senses. Young Master Black Cloud said with a flattering smile. In that case, let's split up and meet up with Fairy Wushuang. Ling Xiao said flatly. Then he rose into the air and flew into the distance. There were hundreds of thousands of immortal stones in the array space. Although Ling Xiao had the eye of the ruler and could see through the immortal stones, his power of the ruler was limited, and he could not see through hundreds of thousands of immortal stones. Hence, he had to think of another way. Ling Xiao reached out and picked up an immortal stone. This immortal stone contained a majestic divine path aura and immortal path aura. It looked extraordinary, and it was like a beating heart. Ling Xiao suddenly had an idea and activated the divine path secret skill and the immortal path secret skill. Suddenly, the divine path aura and immortal path aura in his body intertwined and turned into a mysterious devouring power that surged toward the immortal stone in his hand. The immortal stone in his hand trembled slightly. In an instant, the majestic divine path aura and immortal path aura were refined by Ling Xiao's 2 origin secret skills and integrated into Ling Xiao's body. The immortal stone in his hand dimmed. Soon, the surface of the stone shattered and revealed the item inside. It was empty. It was a useless stone. Ling Xiao's eyes shone brightly. He thought he had finally found the fastest way to find the core of the array. Top. Chapter 2950. Ling Xiao used the Heavenly God Secret Skill and Heavenly Immortal Secret Skill to quickly cut the stone and devour the Divine Dao and Immortal Dao aura in the Immortal Stone. Swaiming WW Swaiming. This was the real stone-cutting skill. However, Ling Xiao had done it discreetly. Even if those outside the formation space could see what was going on inside, they could only see that Ling Xiao had destroyed an immortal stone. Ling Xiao could quickly cut the stone with the Heavenly God Secret Skill and Heavenly Immortal Secret Skill. He could also detect the intensity of the Divine Dao and Immortal Dao aura. Since it was the core of the Immortal Coalescence Emperor formation, it must contain the Emperor's aura. Ling Xiao only needed to use the Heavenly God Secret Skill and Heavenly Immortal Secret Skill to detect if the Immortal Stone contained the Emperor's aura. There was no need to cut the stone. Buzz. Ling Xiao was surrounded by dazzling immortal light. He leaped up and flew into the distance. He used the Heavenly Immortal Secret Skill and Heavenly God Secret Skill to detect if the immortal stones contained the Emperor's aura. These immortal stones came from all over the immortal world. Does this Immortal Coalescence Emperor formation contain the power of multiple dimensions? Ling Xiao thought to himself. These immortal stones were clearly not produced here. Even 10,000 years could not have produced so many immortal stones. These immortal stones came from all over the immortal world. They were clearly transported here by the Immortal Coalescence Emperor formation, using a unique method. Of course, most of these immortal stones did not contain any treasures. Even if there were some treasures, Ling Xiao did not care about most of them. It's an origin source immortal medicine? Ling Xiao's eyes flashed. He suddenly saw an immortal stone in front of him. It was shining with immortal light and filled with auspicious qi. It looked extraordinary, and there was an origin source immortal medicine in it. The origin source immortal medicine looked very unique. It looked like a snow-white ginseng. It was chubby but had a human face. It was sleeping soundly in the immortal stone. White Jade Immortal King Ginseng? The name of this origin source immortal medicine appeared in Ling Xiao's mind. White Jade Immortal King Ginseng was the main ingredient for refining supreme immortal elixirs. It could allow one to be reborn and condense body of origin. It was extremely precious. However, according to Lei Ling's memories, even in the immortal world, the White Jade Immortal King Ginseng was extremely rare. Whoosh! Ling Xiao naturally didn't hold back. He reached out and grabbed. Immediately, the celestial stone landed in his palm, and he put it away. There were hundreds of thousands of immortal stones here. Every time the Jie clan and the Shi clan held the stone opening ceremony, they would enter this place to fight. Although their main goal was to find the core of the formation, they would also selectively take away some immortal stones. As long as it was not too excessive, taking away dozens of immortal stones was not a big deal. The Jie and Shi families had already tacitly agreed. However, after so many years, they all knew that there were basically no treasures in the immortal stones here, so very few people would take the immortal stones here. Ling Xiao's speed wasn't fast. He looked slow as if he was wandering around. However, no one noticed that he was surrounded by resplendent immortal light. He was using the Heavenly Deity Secret Technique and Heavenly Immortal Secret Technique to investigate the immortal stones. Trying to find the core of the formation among hundreds of thousands of immortal stones was like looking for a needle in a haystack. However, Ling Xiao was not in a hurry. He was very fast and could investigate dozens of immortal stones in an instant. He would only use the eye of the ruler to investigate those extremely special immortal stones. It's the great Tao immortal metal? I've struck gold. Ling Xiao's eyes suddenly lit up. He saw that in one of the immortal stones in front of him, there was a piece of metal the size of a fist. It emitted resplendent immortal light, and flowed with the aura of the great Tao origin. It was very mysterious. It was another piece of extreme Tao metal. The great Tao immortal metal was not inferior to the 5 elements immortal metal. It was an extreme Tao metal unique to the immortal realm, and could be used to refine extreme Tao emperor weapons. Ling Xiao naturally didn't stand on ceremony, and kept the immortal stone. Whoosh! Along the way, Ling Xiao found that most of the immortal stones were useless stones. Although some of them contained treasures, he didn't care about them. However, even so, there were still some fish that escaped the net. Ling Xiao found dozens of origin source immortal herbs, a few supreme grade immortal weapons, a piece of extreme Tao metal, and a few unknown elixirs. Along the way, he had a bountiful harvest. However, Ling Xiao still couldn't find the core of the formation. It's not a good idea to continue searching like this, Ling Xiao thought to himself. At this moment, Ling Xiao found Shi Wuji, Shi Qingyi, and Shi Tianying. Unknowingly, he had arrived at the area that the Shi family was searching. Shi Wuji looked at Ling Xiao coldly and ignored him. He continued to fly forward. Something's not right. The 3 from the Shi family didn't search the immortal stones one by one. Instead, they went directly in a certain direction as if they already knew what was ahead. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed with golden light. Shi Wuji, Shi Tianying, and Shi Qingyi also noticed Ling Xiao. However, they ignored him and went to a specific area to search. I see. Through observation, Ling Xiao found something strange about the 3 Shi family siblings. It turned out that the 3 of them seemed to have a fixed area. They didn't search the immortal stones one by one. Instead, they came to a certain area, checked the immortal stones there, and went to the next area. I might be able to pick up some scraps if I follow them. Ling Xiao's heart skipped a beat. He gave up searching aimlessly and chased after the 3 of them. Ling Xiao didn't get close to them. He was hundreds of feet away from them, but he followed behind them closely. After seeing the 3 Shi family siblings stop, Ling Xiao used the Sky Immortal Secret skill and the Sky God Secret skill to search for the immortal stones in this area. Ling Xiao's efficiency was more than 100 or 1,000 times greater than theirs. Big brother Lei Ling has been following us, Shi Tianying said coldly. Don't worry about him. Is he trying to take advantage of us by following us? How can there be such a good thing? If I find the core of the formation later, you guys stop him. I only need a moment to refine the core of the formation, Shi Wuji said with a sneer. Big brother is right. Does Lei Ling really think that the Shi family is a pushover? We must teach him a lesson later, Shi Qingyi said coldly. The 3 of them seemed to have a clear division of labor. After quickly searching for the immortal stones in a certain area, they flew to the next area. Ling Xiao was also very patient. He followed them for hundreds of feet. When they stopped, Ling Xiao also stopped to search for the immortal stones. Just like that, Ling Xiao followed them for a few thousand miles. Chapter 2951. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed with light. He saw that the 3 Shi siblings had stopped, but this area was clearly different. The immortal stones here were extremely large, with a radius of about 10 feet. They had strange shapes, and were very different from the immortal stones in other areas. Most importantly, Ling Xiao felt that the immortal stones here contained an extremely majestic divine path aura and immortal path aura, far surpassing that of other areas. Whoosh! Ling Xiao's body was surrounded by mysterious rays of light as he probed the surrounding immortal stones. At the same time, the eyes of the 3 Shi siblings seemed to light up. They quickly probed the immortal stones, picking them up and then putting them down, searching for the formation core. However, they were not as fast as Ling Xiao. Soon, Ling Xiao found that one of the immortal stones was a little strange. The immortal stone was only the size of a fist and looked very inconspicuous. There were holes on it, from which faint immortal light shot out. However, Ling Xiao could sense a faint trace of extreme emperor's might from the immortal stone. Buzz. Without hesitation, Ling Xiao used the ruler's eye to look at it. Suddenly, the layers of stone disappeared in front of Ling Xiao, and he saw the inside of the immortal stone. It was a bead, black and white in color, flowing with a mysterious extreme emperor aura. It looked very colorful and very mysterious. Ling Xiao felt the strange fluctuations of the sun, moon, stars, and all things in the world from the bead. It was the power of the formation. That's it. Ling Xiao's eyes shone brightly. He was immediately sure that the black and white bead in the immortal stone was the formation core. Whoosh! Without hesitation, Ling Xiao leaped over and grabbed at the immortal stone in the air. However, at this moment, Shi Wuji also noticed that the immortal stone was acting strangely. Qingyi Tianying, stop him! Shi Wuji roared and grabbed at the immortal stone as well. Whoosh! Whoosh! Shi Tianying and Shi Qingyi were slightly taken aback. Then, powerful immortal light bloomed around them, and they charged at Ling Xiao. However, they were still one step too late. Ling Xiao arrived in front of the immortal stone in the blink of an eye. Just as Shi Wuji shouted, Ling Xiao had already grabbed the immortal stone. This godly immortal rock is mine. Ling Xiao smiled. His smile was extremely radiant. However, Shi Wuji's expression was extremely ugly. Although he did not examine it carefully, he was 90% certain that the core of the formation was in the immortal rock in Ling Xiao's hand. Lei Ling, hand over the immortal stone in your hand. Otherwise die. Shi Wuji said coldly. There was a cold killing intent in his eyes. He was determined to get the core of the formation. No matter who dared to stop him from obtaining the array core, they would all die. Whoosh! 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 Shi Wuji, Shi Qingyi, and Shi Tianying instantly appeared around Ling Xiao and surrounded him. Their eyes were filled with coldness. With just the three of you? Ling Xiao smiled faintly. His gaze was extremely calm, but his entire body exuded an extremely dangerous aura. Kill him. Shi Wuji's eyes were filled with killing intent. In an instant, a formation map appeared in his hand. He then pressed it down towards Ling Xiao. Rumble. Blazing divine light blossomed as dazzling runes appeared one after another. The formation spread out, and the crisp sound of a sword rang out, causing the surrounding space to tremble violently. Ling Xiao only felt the light in front of him changing. His entire body was enveloped by the space formed by the formation map. Whoosh! 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 Streaks of sword qi pierced through the heavens and earth. They were hundreds of millions of feet long. In front of Ling Xiao, there seemed to be a sword domain. Countless streaks of sword qi swept towards him like a storm. Kill! 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 3 cold roars were heard. Shi Wuji, Shi Qingyi, and Shi Tianying each held a black ancient sword in their hands. They exuded a monstrous killing intent as they charged towards Ling Xiao. What a powerful formation map! Ling Xiao's eyes revealed a trace of amazement. The formation map was incomparably ancient. It contained slaughter sword intent, as if it could destroy everything. It could even pose a great threat to an immortal monarch. Shi Wuji's cultivation base was at the immortal venerable realm. Shi Tianying and Shi Qingyi were slightly weaker. However, the 3 black ancient swords in their hands caused their aura to skyrocket. They were like 3 peerless immortal venerables as they charged towards Ling Xiao. Get lost! A sharp glint flashed in Ling Xiao's eyes. Facing the surging sword qi, he was not afraid at all. Instead, he suddenly roared out. Roar! It was as if a dragon's roar had exploded between the heavens and earth. It contained a terrifying sound wave that shattered the sword qi that was sweeping across the sky. Ling Xiao took a step forward and threw out a punch. Crack! Blazing lightning exploded. The unparalleled fist print swept across the void and penetrated the heavens and earth in an instant. It was like an immortal immemorial divine mountain, standing in front of Shi Wuji and the other 2. The huge fist print was ancient and mysterious. It was incomparably ferocious. In an instant, it collided with the 3 sharp black ancient swords. Clang! Sparks flew in all directions as the surrounding void trembled violently. The three Sher brothers' faces changed abruptly, revealing a trace of disbelief. They were suddenly sent flying backwards, their bodies trembling violently. "You useless chickens and dogs dare to snatch the immortal stone from my hands?" Ling Xiao sneered. His voice was like a thunderclap that exploded in the void. His purple hair fluttered in the wind. His face was like jade, and his eyes were like stars. He looked carefree and unrestrained as if he was the focus of the heavens and earth. His robe fluttered in the wind. Every step he took seemed to be stepping on the node of the heavens and earth, causing the surrounding heavens and earth to rumble. His entire body was emitting an extraordinary aura. The battle between Ling Xiao and the three Sher brothers had alerted Jie Wushuang and Master Heiyun almost instantly. "Not good. Lei Ling and Sher Wuji are fighting." Jie Wushuang and Master Heiyun looked at each other, revealing a trace of strong fighting spirit in their eyes. They instantly flew towards the place where the battle had erupted. Outside the formation space, everyone's expression suddenly changed as their gazes fell on the center of the battlefield. They did not expect that Ling Xiao would be the first to obtain the immortal stone that contained the core of the formation. Even though the stone had not been opened, and it had not been verified, the intense battle between Ling Xiao and the three Sher brothers and sisters made them understand that the immortal stone in Ling Xiao's hand must contain the core of the formation. Now it was up to the Jie family and the Sher family, who would be able to obtain the core of the formation. This battle was unavoidable. Peak. Chapter 2952. The formation diagram that Sher Wuji used was called the Limitless Sword Formation Diagram. It contained billions of limitless sword qi. Each limitless sword qi was formed from the power of metal, and was extremely powerful. The black ancient swords in the hands of the three siblings were three limitless swords. They were a set with the Limitless Sword Formation Diagram, allowing them to move freely in the Limitless Sword Formation Diagram, and control billions of limitless sword qi at the same time. Each limitless sword qi was comparable to the power of an immortal king. Its power was extremely terrifying. With the limitless sword in hand, Sher Wuji, Sher Qingyi, and Sher Tianying all had the combat strength of an invincible immortal venerable. If an ordinary immortal venerable was trapped in the sword formation, his soul would have been completely destroyed. With the limitless sword formation diagram, Sher Wuji was even confident that he could fight against an immortal monarch expert. This was naturally the treasure that the Sher family had obtained from the divine jade immortal fetus over the countless years. It was a treasure refined by a limitless immortal monarch in the ancient times. Its power was unparalleled, and it contained a trace of sword Dao origin power. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In the limitless sword formation diagram, Sher Wuji, Sher Qingyi, and Sher Tianying all held the limitless sword in their hands. They turned into three resplendent balls of light, and controlled billions of limitless sword qi. Like lightning, they all charged towards Ling Xiao. Streaks of sharp sword qi tore through the void. They were dazzling like brilliant fireworks, but they also contained extremely terrifying killing intent. Boom. Ling Xiao's eyes were like lightning, and his body emitted a mysterious and eternal glow. His fists were like dragons, controlling endless lightning. Every single punch was ferocious and domineering, obliterating the sword qi that filled the sky. Although the limitless sword qi was fierce, they couldn't get close to Ling Xiao at all. They were all exploded by Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao walked over as if he was pushing the sun, moon, and stars. The limitless sword qi around him was annihilated, turning into a resplendent rain of light. How can he be so strong? Sher Wuji was shocked, and his expression was extremely ugly. Although the three of them were holding the limitless sword and could control the power of the limitless sword formation diagram, facing Ling Xiao was like facing the vast might of the heavens. Every punch of Ling Xiao caused the blood in their bodies to churn and shake violently. Boom. Ling Xiao arrived in front of Sher Wuji and the other two. He punched out in the air, using his bare fist to block the infinite sword. A blazing light burst out, causing the infinite sword to tremble violently. Sher Qingyi and Sher Tianying, who were slightly weaker, trembled violently and were sent flying. Whoosh! Ling Xiao kicked out in the air, causing the limitless sword qi to explode. Then, without slowing down, he kicked towards Shi Wuji's head. Shi Wuji was shocked and furious. He slashed down with the limitless sword, wanting to cut off one of Ling Xiao's legs. Ling Xiao's figure was as fast as lightning. The tip of his foot was sharp as he avoided the blade and kicked the body of the sword, causing the Wuji sword to hum and tremble. Ling Xiao's gaze was incomparably cold. He directly extended two fingers that were as translucent as jade and caught the infinite sword. Then, with a sudden jolt, an unparalleled divine force passed through the infinite sword and into Shi Wuji's body. Shi Wuji's arm went numb, and the infinite sword flew out of his hand and landed in Ling Xiao's hand. With your meager strength, you want to imitate others and steal their treasures? Ling Xiao laughed disdainfully. Boom! With the infinite sword in his hand, he suddenly shook it. In an instant, a mighty thunderbolt exploded. A wave of heavenly punishment rushed into the infinite sword, causing it to shine brightly. The infinite sword buzzed and trembled, as if it wanted to break free from Ling Xiao's control, but was forcefully suppressed by Ling Xiao. The infinite sword in Ling Xiao's hand suddenly spewed out a terrifying heavenly punishment force. It was like a light pillar that penetrated the heavens and earth, directly piercing through the void. Boom! Wrapped in a sword light that was hundreds of millions of feet long, Ling Xiao directly slashed down with his sword. The surrounding infinite sword qi was annihilated. The void trembled violently, and the space formed by the infinite sword formation was directly cut open by Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao took a step forward and walked out of the area covered by the infinite sword formation. Shi Wuji, are you trying to start a war between the Jie and Shi family? At this moment, Jie Wushuang also rushed over. She coldly reprimanded. Her face was as cold as frost, and her eyes revealed a trace of cold killing intent. She did not expect Shi Wuji and his siblings to be so unscrupulous. They directly besieged Ling Xiao and wanted to snatch the array core from Ling Xiao. War? Hasn't the war already begun? Shi Wuji sneered, a trace of ferocious killing intent in his eyes. Both the Jie and Shi families understood that the array core was the most important. Whoever could obtain the array core and control the immortal coalescence emperor array would be able to control the life and death of the other party. Therefore, for the sake of the array core, both parties would do anything. Fairy Wushuang, the array core is in this immortal stone. Quickly refine it. Leave the three of them to me. Ling Xiao said indifferently, a trace of strong fighting intent in his eyes. Whoosh! He handed the immortal stone to Jie Wushuang. Is it really the array core? Jie Wushuang's face revealed a surprised and delighted expression. She had guessed that the immortal stone might be the array core. Otherwise, the three Shi siblings would not be so determined to kill Ling Xiao. She did not expect that the array core would have to be obtained by Ling Xiao. Be careful. Jie Wushuang knew that this was not the time to be courteous. After receiving the immortal stone, she said to Ling Xiao seriously. Young Master Heiyun's eyes were full of vigilance. He protected Jie Wushuang and began to retreat. Ling Xiao stood in front of the three Shi brothers. Kill them. Shi Wuji's eyes revealed a trace of ferocious killing intent. In an instant, a terrifying aura rose from his body, and a blazing immortal light bloomed. Flames began to rise around his body, and in an instant, three immortal swords appeared. At the same time, the infinite sword floated in front of him, releasing an unparalleled sword qi. Shi Wuji chose to burn his immortal body in exchange for a few times more power. Then he controlled the infinite sword and directly released a monstrous sword qi. It covered the sky and enveloped Ling Xiao, young Master Heiyun, and Jie Wushuang. At the same time, Shi Wuji's words were like a signal. Shi Qingyi's eyes revealed a trace of crazy killing intent. Light flashed in her hand, and an immortal talisman surrounded by resplendent immortal light appeared. The word annihilate was engraved on the talisman using ancient inscriptions. A terrifying destructive force spread out from the immortal talisman, as if it was going to destroy the world. That terrifying aura made Jie Wushuang and young Master Heiyun's faces change. Their eyes revealed an incomparably shocked look. Not good. It's the destruction immortal talisman. Jie Wushuang shouted. Her voice was filled with anxiety. At the same time, Ling Xiao also felt a strong threat. The destructive aura contained in the immortal talisman was actually the destruction origin. It was extremely terrifying. This was an immortal talisman that could pose a great threat to him. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.